is Justice Cleo Powell of the State Supreme Court. Justice Powell. Justice Powell, welcome. If you just want to come up and tell us a little bit about your experience on the court and why you want to continue. It's almost a thankless job, but thank you for serving.
Good morning, and thank you all for having me. It's really not a thankless job, Senator Deeds. I very much enjoy the privilege of serving the citizens of the Commonwealth of Virginia. I take my oath very seriously, and I work very hard, and I do that because I know that we're the last stop, and we're trying very much to get it right. So I appreciate the opportunity to have served, and I respectfully request the opportunity to continue.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there any questions of Justice Powell? Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, I have a quick question.
I'm sorry.
Surville.
Senator Surville.
Just quick. Good morning, Justice Powell. I want to know,
Senator.
is there any chance we'll ever get electronic filing in our circuit courts anytime in the next 2 decades?
I will pass that along to the chief and to Carl, and we will hope so, Senator.
Okay, really hope so. Thanks.
Okay, are there any serious questions? Thank you, Justice Powell.
Thank you all.
She has comment.
Should I just
Oh,
stand here?
I apologize. We do have, there is a citizen who wants to speak. Ms. Grenadier, you've got 3 minutes.
I understand. I spent 22 days in jail and 14 days in solitary confinement for the pleasure of Judge Judge Haddock and Judge Clark. No one cares. I was denied my access to my rosary and this comb I carry with me, because this is what freedom is about. We, the citizens, are above the 3 different executive branch, the judiciary, and the, but Justice Powell, when my appeals went in there, they were all denied. 17.105B is very, very clear that when a judge has all the judges recuse themselves, it's the Supreme Court who chooses them. Judge Donald Haddock chose all my judges, told me to my face I would never win. All of my evidence, which you all have been seeing, I've been coming here now for 10 years, was sent back to me. And the Supreme Court of Virginia found that that was okay. Not only did they find that was okay, they found it okay that the judges signed an order, all 3 of them, in collusion, to ensure that I couldn't file anything. Then they hired this man to harm me, to rape me, drug me, and get sexual inappropriate pictures. Oh, I called the police. They were told by the Commonwealth attorney to never take any police reports from me. They were allowed in the city of Alexandria to do whatever I wanted, and the Supreme Court, which is one of the most corrupt Supreme Courts in the United States, because it's a trickle-down effect. If the Supreme Court would hold the judges accountable, then we wouldn't have this problem in every single court in the state of Virginia. The Supreme Court, Judge Donald Lemons, didn't resign early because he was a good guy. He resigned early because he was corrupt. At least that's the appearance to everyone on the street. The difference about today, I launched judicialpedia.com. This year I've had 1.4 million views, and that's probably on the low side. We are going to make a difference, we the people. So you guys have an opportunity now to start investigating. On November 7th, I sent you all an email regarding what was going on. And instead, you created a program for mediation. So when I appealed one of my cases, I thought, this is great. You know what the problem was? I was pro se. If you're pro se, you're not allowed to mediate. That's no different than saying back in the 60s, a white person and a black man couldn't use the same toilet.
Ms.
It's
Grenadier,
no different. The discrimination is so deep.
you used 3 minutes, and you haven't said
Okay.
anything specific about Justice
Okay, let me say
Powell.
something.
I
She's
want you-
corrupt, and she should not be renewed.
Okay, you're
because
you're
she
speaking on a
has
lot of other
ignored all
judges,
of
too.
this. She has ignored all of this.
I appreciate that.
She's corrupt, and the
Senator
whole
Morrissey, I think, has a
Supreme Court
question.
needs to be reviewed.
Yeah, very briefly, Mr. Chair. Ms. Grenadier?
Yes.
First of all, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
You have been coming, at least since I've been on
years.
Judiciary. And I think I speak for everybody up here. We cherish the right for anybody to come and articulate why somebody should or should not be on the bench. And you are heard, all right? I will say this, though, to suggest that when a ruling does not go your way, or to call a particular judge or the entire bench corrupt, just hear me out. It's not helping you, because while there may be some grains of truth in some of the things that you're trying to articulate, when you talk about a corrupt bench or somebody who was who retired because they were corrupt, it's not gaining you influence, or you're not helping your cause. That's all I'm saying. So send your emails to the people. People do listen to you, but try to just maybe dial it down a little bit when it comes to.
You know what?
Hold on, it's the last thought I'm going to make, and then I'm going to stop. Okay. Just dial it down a little bit, and don't give a broad brush to the entire bench.
This is exactly why she should not. The Supreme Court did not follow the rules. The judges didn't follow the rules. Nobody is enforcing the rules. The jerk, and I've been fighting it for 10 years. And you know what? I have done everything as was required of me. I have not done, one thing I am doing is I am speaking out, and I'm giving a platform for others to speak out. And that is going to make the difference.
Okay.
Because, and I apologize, you don't like the word corrupt, but that's what it is. And I've tried the last 10 times I've come to be a lot more general. But instead I was told, oh, you have 30 seconds, you have this, you have that. I haven't been treated very kindly by any of you. So I apologize if you don't like the way I say it. But you know what? I've lived it. I spent the 14 days in solitary confinement. None of you did. For $8,100 in legal fees. And not a one of you, and it's not funny.
No, it's not funny at all. But you've signed up to speak a number of times, and you'll
Mr.
have
Chair.
plenty of
You're
time
right.
to speak.
And, you know, it's my constitutional right.
You'll have plenty of time to speak, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Okay, Justice Powell, thank you. The next judge is Judge Mary Grace O'Brien of the Court of Appeals. Yeah. And Chairman Bell just reminded me, we don't have a quorum today of either the Senate Judiciary or House Courts. We won't be taking any votes today of any kind. But we're just receiving interviews and getting information today. Judge O'Brien, just tell us how you enjoy the bench, why you want to continue to serve.
Thank you. I love this job. Thank you so much. Thank you for electing me 8 years ago. I love it for all the reasons that I said I would, which is that I enjoyed the jurisdiction, the collaborative ability to work with other judges, and I'm sort of a self-professed nerd. I'm an English major, and I like to read and research and do those sorts of things. I will say that I used to joke I was 7 years on the juvenile bench. I served 7 years on the circuit court bench, and I would say I was kind of like a locust. I'd show up somewhere different every 7 years. And 7 years into this job, we got a new court with the expanded jurisdiction and the expanded court. So it has been challenging and interesting, and I would love to continue if you saw fit.
Have you found the expansion of jurisdiction a challenge? on the Court of Appeals?
Absolutely. And I mean, I find myself going back to when I was a circuit court judge, trying to relearn things like conversion and contract law. But, you know, the great thing is that you all have given us not just the resources in terms of expanding the clerk's office, but new judges. And so you have people with all kinds of backgrounds and abilities. And we have always been, and I think still are, a very collegial court, so that you can pick up the phone and call somebody, hey, what do you know about this? What do you think about this? And after so many years as a trial judge where I had to make the decision solo, it's great to have that resource. It's a little humbling sometimes when I'm quite convinced about something and my colleagues will say, yeah, not so fast, Mary Grace, you know, but it is.
Are there questions for Judge O'Brien? Well, there are not questions. Ms. Grenadier wants to speak on this, so you're welcome to stay and listen to what Ms. Grenadier has to say. You have 3 minutes, ma'am.
Ms. O'Brien was a judge in Virginia here, and she oversaw the case of Justin Wolf. And it was a 5-page letter that was sent to her with several signatures. He's a young man who was found innocent by federal court. And he's just been given 41 years, or last few years, 41 years for a crime that he wrote a letter that he did it after being in solitary confinement for several years. And she was asked by several DAs, by several other judges, to review this case and to handle it differently. We have a young man from Leesburg, Virginia, that shouldn't be in jail. He was found innocent in federal court. But she stuck to her guns. That's what she wanted. Why she wanted it, I don't know. Or if it was someone of bigger power that wanted it. And she did the duty and got the reward of going to the appeals court. I have also been in front of her regarding Alona Grenadier Heckman and property that, a different suit. And she handled it with bias. And her colleague, Weimer, was the one who stepped in and did the final thing. But I do not think that she is a person of integrity and should be on the bench.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Chair.
And I think that you all need to look at the letter, and I will send it to you.
I appreciate that. Senator Morrissey's got a question.
Not of Ms. Grenadier, of Judge O'Brien. Judge, the question or the comments from Ms. Grenadier did pose a question. Earlier, last year, one of my colleagues introduced legislation. It was called Second Chance Review. And it dealt with a situation where an individual who had been given a lengthy 30, 40-year penitentiary sentence would have an opportunity to have that reviewed after 20 years. My question to you, it did not pass. My question to you is, do you see any potential obstacles from a policy matter if that were done, and how would that affect, in your opinion, a Court of Appeals review of a second chance review by a circuit court judge?
The two questions, really. The first question about the policy, I cannot, just hearing the question, I can't foresee a policy problem with that. If it's 20 years in, a lot of things can change in 20 years. And I think that that is it would be a reasonable request to have a review after 20 years. I think probably, and this again is kind of, from the hip, that the Court of Appeals would review. You're talking about a circuit court review of a decision?
Yes, Judge.
The circuit court or the Court of Appeals would probably review it under an abuse of discretion standard, which would be deferential, certainly, to the trial court who had the opportunity to see all the evidence.
Okay. Thank you very much, Judge. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Judge, very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Good to see you. Judge Richard Attlee of the Court of Appeals. Judge Atlee, how are you?
Well, thank you, sir.
If you just want to tell us a little bit about your experience on the Court of Appeals and why you want to continue, appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Obviously, I've been here approximately 8 years, and I have thoroughly enjoyed it. Big learning curve to begin with, because very different from my experience on the trial court, very different from my experience as a trial lawyer. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope I've deported myself well, and that this committee.
Could you lift the microphone up just a little
Certainly.
bit? Thank
My
you.
apologies. And excuse my voice, I'm coming off of a sinus infection last week. But I hope that I've demonstrated myself capable before this committee and that I have the ability to serve for another 8 years.
Okay, thank you, sir. Are there questions of Judge Atlee from the committees? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
On Ms. Grenadier's, Judge Atlee, you may want to stick around. Ms. Grenadier's going to speak.
Yes, sir.
Judge Atlee was around when my appeals to the appeals court went in. Here again, I feel lack of integrity of all judges who have heard any of this, whether I appropriately or inappropriately. The law and the professional code of ethics in every judge in Virginia is also a lawyer. And if any lawyer hears of any corruption or any bias or any type of questionable behavior of another lawyer or a judge, you're a self-reporting group of people. You don't want to be have people looking over your shoulders. We right now have in the appeals court a program for mediation. All the judges should know about it. The program is very clear. It is only for people with lawyers. I have the emails, and I'm more than happy to share them with you. They send you an email that states, your case can have mediation. It was the first time I felt I had hope. The opposing side was our attorney generals. They said, no, we don't want it. We'll do better with the appeals judges because they know they've got the in. I wrote back and I gave them the exact words. Then I get an email back that says, you're pro se, you don't get mediation. Again, that's discrimination of the worst kind. And it's not just me. I've got 4 other people that this has happened to. I don't see any integrity in our courts. When you are discriminating, no matter what the color of the person is, no matter anything like that, and I'm not the only one that has been through the system. I didn't have the money for lawyers, but some people have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and been treated like this. We have a problem. When you do have where all the judges have recused themselves, they choose a judge who's their friend and will do what the lawyer on the opposing side wants. We have a lot of women in this town or in this state that have been harmed. And you can look on judicialpedia.com and see it. And it's growing. People are standing up and speaking out. And I think that with social media now going to allow us to do it, it's even going to be happening more. But more importantly, we have a law that's going to be coming in front of you all with a request so that if anybody speaks badly of a judge, basically, and the judge feels it's harassment, they're calling it identity theft. And you can go to jail for 6 months for each count. We have a problem. And you guys don't like the way I'm calling people out. But I don't see anyone else doing it, and I don't see anyone having them follow the laws and the rules. Thank you.
Okay, the next judge we have is Circuit Court Judge James O'Connell, Circuit Court of Chesterfield and Colonial Heights. It says that he's, yeah, I apologize. And he's General District Court Judge. I apologize. I misstated that. Judge O'Connell, if you just want to tell us a little bit about your experience on the bench and why you want to continue. I appreciate it.
Well,
Thanks.
thank you. Yes, my name's James O'Connell, I'm a General District Court judge in Chesterfield County. Our jurisdiction also includes Colonial Heights. I've been an attorney for 34 years. I first started out in private practice for 8 years, and I completed 3 terms of court-appointed attorney in Chesterfield County. I enjoyed practicing in Chesterfield County, and after that I joined the Commonwealth Attorney's Office and was a prosecutor there for 15 years. And it was always a goal of mine to become a judge, and the opportunity occurred, and I've been sitting in Chesterfield County and Colonial Heights for almost 12 years now.
Okay. Are there questions of Judge O'Connell? Senator Morrissey.
Thank you. Good afternoon, good morning, Judge.
Good morning.
And thank you for your service. Judge, when I was practicing, I always found you unfailingly polite to me and when I was in court to others. But have you had an opportunity to look at the summaries of the 2023 JPE summaries?
Yes, I did.
There are some things that are troubling. You're ranked 4th from the last, and some of your lower scores dealt with, I'm sorry if you can't, patience, courtesy. And I'm not going to go down the list, but these are troubling to me and some other folks that are judging this. Can you address that ranking and why you feel that some of the members of the bar in areas of patience, courtesy, conscientiousness, respect would have you ranked in the towards the bottom?
Yes, Senator. I will agree with you. I'm disappointed in some of those numbers, and if given the opportunity, I will work on improving those scores. I've been evaluated 3 times now. The first 2 times I've been evaluated, all my numbers have been in the high 80s and 90s. This is the first time that those scores have been lower in those areas. I brought my evaluation from 2016. That was the evaluation presented to the General Assembly at my last reappointment. May I introduce that? Okay. And I would like to say that I don't think you can compare Chesterfield County to most other jurisdictions. Thank you. We are a high-volume court. The Supreme Court has characterized us as high-functioning and high-volume, and we're doing that while we're understaffed with clerks and judges. I've spoken to you recently about that. For example, the cases that we handle are equal to the cases that Henrico handles. And Henrico has 6 General District Court judges, and we only have 4 2/5. So that puts a lot of strain on the court. Since my midterm evaluation, there's been a changing of the guard in Chesterfield. As you know, I've got a high standard in my court. I will admit I'm a demanding judge, and with the newer attorneys coming into court, I've been a little more direct with them than I could see where I'm perceived as being impatient at times. And then finally, the Supreme Court assigns a facilitator to go over the evaluations. This past evaluation, retired Judge Steverson reviewed my numbers. He told me that they were good. I was not satisfied with some of them. But he came and observed me in court. He evaluated me, and he rated me as an outstanding judge and said I was a credit to the judiciary. So I would like to introduce his evaluation. And during my last evaluation that was given to the General Assembly, retired Judge Carrico evaluated me. She evaluated me as exemplary in all respects. So I would like to introduce both of those evaluations from the retired judges.
Just one follow-up question, Mr. Chairman. First of all, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You've been on the bench for about 11 years.
Yeah, yes.
The best part of your answers that I've heard were, I can do better and I'm willing to. I am fully aware of the stress in the General District Court. However, the most important thing to me, and I think others here, is people going into court and feeling that they had their day in court. The next most important thing that you said is, I want to improve. So to the extent that and I'm looking at your evaluation earlier, you did better there. Nobody is saying change your style, except for with regard to some of these things like courtesy, patience, attentiveness. Just remember that that's what people are looking for, to have their fair day in court. All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Morrison. And thank you, Judge.
All right, thank you. May I introduce those
Sure,
two
we'll take whatever you have.
evaluations? Okay. All right. Thank you for your time. I would appreciate the opportunity to serve for a third term.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Next is Judge Hugh Harrell from the Circuit Court in Southwest Virginia, the 27th. Judge Harrell, I'm looking at your scores, and I think you have the highest scores among circuit court judges. And I just want you to explain a little bit, aside the fact that you went to Wake Forest, which is a pretty good, but what your experience on the circuit bench has taught you, and why you want to continue.
Well, it has taught me to be patient. It has taught me that to be more of a human being to the people that come in front of me. I think when I was in district court, it was just sort of an assembly line. Here, I really spend more time interacting with the litigants and getting to understand their positions and know who they are as people. I want to stay in it because I love it. I just thoroughly enjoy my job, what I do, serving people, and I feel like I've really evolved as a judge from when I started.
Okay, are there questions for Judge Harrell?
Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Judge Harrell, good to see you this morning.
Good morning.
I know it's a long drive from Southwest.
Yes, sir, you know that one well.
I want to commend you for your scores. This is my 10th session. In the 10 years I've been here, I think those are the highest scores I've ever seen on average.
Thank you.
And that's particularly important with respect to a circuit judge who handles a broad range of things that affects people's daily lives, no question. You know, you also have a reputation down there of being an innovator in the courtroom for some of the programs and dockets that you've created there locally. And I want to ask you specifically about one that has gotten a lot of accolades in the media and in the legal circles, and that's the drug court program.
Yes, sir.
Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I love my I call it recovery court because we don't do drugs, but I love it, and it has really been the pinnacle of my career working with that. During the pandemic, I got sort of divorced from the whole thing, and I saw our participants suffer as a result. So when we got back we started bringing the participants in. And every Wednesday night in the courtroom, we have a exercise session, and we take them through high-intensity workouts. We have weights, we have wall balls, we have kettlebells, dumbbells, barbells, right there in the courtroom. And we spend about an hour working out with them, and then we spend about 15 or 20 minutes on the end of that discussing recovery and how they're doing, and it's just wonderful. I love doing it. It is a privilege to be able to spend time with these folks, and it has rejuvenated my compassion. And we had left physical fitness out of the equation of recovery. Introducing it has dramatically improved their recoveries because it was just ignored before. And when you give people a chance to reinvent themselves physically, spiritually and mentally come right along with that.
Judge, I thank you for your innovation
Yes, sir.
and the effectiveness of that program.
Thank you.
Are there additional questions for Judge Harrell? Judge Jeff Delegate Bourne, I apologize.
Judge, no. No, thank you. Judge, it's good to see you.
Good morning.
Is it more challenging or less challenging sitting on the circuit court than it is to keep Judge Mabe straight?
Now I know. Okay, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, he was my roommate in law school.
He was my high school
And he was-
classmate.
Right, I understand. And he was my boss for a long time, and then I got to be judge. So that was nice to kind of flip-flop that
Yeah.
on him. Yeah, but he's a big man, so I got to be careful.
Well, tell him I said hello and send
I
my
will.
best.
Thank you.
Senator Morrissey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Judge.
Good morning. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Mr. Chair, you've heard me before, and other members, I haven't hesitated to bring to the joint panel's discussion folks that are at the very bottom of the judicial rankings, and I think it's important to note that Judge Harrell, with regard to courtesy and patience and conscientiousness, is at the very top, third from the top. So that's what's important to myself, and I think many of my other colleagues, that people feel when they go into court, they may not get the ruling that they want, but what is important, they can walk out and at least say, I had my day in court. So thank you for that.
I have learned from my mistakes, and I have learned from times when I have been intemperate in court, and you take home a lot of shame at the end of the night when you have been. And that's something I've really tried to work on and continue to work on, is developing that.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Are there additional questions?
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Judge Alex Iden, Winchester, Virginia. It's been a good experience. It's been a great experience. It's been an opportunity to help people in a way that I've never been able to do before. I was a prosecutor before for 13 years. I was a defense attorney before that. That experience has been valuable in seeing both sides. We've initiated a drug court. That has been a very rewarding experience. It's been a change for me to go from prosecuting people and not getting to know them to the drug court experience, where I've learned the intimate details of their lives and what's gone wrong and how things can go right. It's been a rewarding experience, and I thank you for it.
You indicate, how long have you had that going, and how do you think it's going?
I think it's going well. We've had it since 2016. I don't have the stats for the folks that we've graduated and how that's gone. At first it was a disturbing experience, because we took the folks that, as the national plans tell us that we should do, that we took the folks that were least likely to succeed. And it's an interesting, what we wanted to do in the first place was be able to graduate people and say, look what we've done. We've brought model citizens now to you. And it didn't work out exactly that way. What we learned was that the people in the worst circumstances were the ones who got all of these resources. And that has been so much more rewarding when those lives turn around. It's a strenuous program. The folks that don't make it, don't make it. And the folks that do make it are doing well, and we're pleased with them.
Thank you for that work. Are there questions for Judge Iden?
Mr. Chair.
Senator Morrissey.
Judge, are you running the drug court program?
In the sense that, well, there are two circuit court judges for it, Judge Eldridge and I. are the circuit court judges. To say that we run that's an interesting difference in how drug court works. Yes, we are ultimately running the program, but we have a wonderful partnership with Valley Health, with the folks, with the medical folks in the community have provided staffing. We have a drug court coordinator. We have a drug court director. Ultimately, yes, I suppose we're running, the judges run that. Yes, sir.
In 2020, Mr. Chairman, in 2020, we expanded the General Assembly the opportunity for people to avail themselves of drug courts. Are they doing that in the 26th Judicial Circuit? And do you have the resources to continue with what I think is probably the most important program that we have in the criminal justice system to help people wean themselves from drugs?
Well, standing before folks in the General Assembly asking if we have enough resources, Senator, we do not. We need more. What we have in terms of, we have a great partnership, as I say, with the folks locally. What we don't have is residential placement. We're sending folks to different parts of the state. There are private placement. If we had more resources in that regard, that would be great. That would be helpful. We are tremendously appreciative of the change that occurred in the funding that we have, and that has been helpful. I don't want to suggest otherwise. We could always use more resources.
Final comment, Mr. Chair. When you have a graduation from your drug court program, you may already be doing it, but if you're not, I would encourage you to invite the legislators within the 26th Judicial Circuit to observe a drug court graduation, which is one of the most encouraging and satisfying things that I've ever seen, seeing the camaraderie among the participants and the support that they give the fellow drug court attendees in getting this monkey of addiction off their back. If more legislators see that, I think they'll be more likely to continue to champion this wonderful program.
Yes, sir. And to see these folks as people. They are just regular people who have made mistakes and have addictions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Is that it?
That's it.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Goodbye.
Unless you want more questions.
Judge Rupin Shaw. Judge Shaw also is a General District Court judge in the Valley. He has the only mental health docket in the 25th Circuit. And Judge, I'd ask you to explain how that works, how it's going, how your time on the bench is going, and why you want to continue.
The mental health docket is meeting every other week. Judge Mayer is sitting now on the mental health docket. We have had number of participants, and we bring them in after the evaluation. They are moving through the process of being given counseling and provided with the services, and then when they are ready to merge back in the community, their cases get reduced to either misdemeanor or gets dismissed, and they are equipped with the technical learning aspect of being a productive member in the community, and that's how the whole process works.
Judge Mayer now presides over that, but you started it, is that correct?
Yes. In my jurisdiction, we applied for the approval from the Supreme Court while I was on the bench. Yeah.
Well, why would you like to continue being on the bench?
I like what I do. It helps mentally challenged folks. Drug abusers and alcoholics, the folks who need help, this General District Court docket certainly is helpful to those. I think I can make a contribution in the community by being on the bench with my experience and knowledge of law.
Judge, I think you're the only person that was born in India that's on the bench in Virginia.
So far, I was. Dipti, I think, Pateki from Fairfax.
So now there are two.
I think there are two now.
Okay. Have you reviewed the scores from VCU, the Judicial Performance Evaluation?
I have.
Okay. What's your reaction to those scores?
Well, I don't know why people would rate in the fashion in which they may. But overall, if you look combination of the first two, I think almost 70% are approving what I do. There is certainly each case, I don't know the reactions of the folks. You know, I do the best I can with each case. I take it.
Okay. Senator Morrissey's got a question.
Good morning, Judge.
Good morning, Senator. Thank you.
My mother used to have an expression, give folks credit where credit is due, and kudos to you for what you do with mental health and some of the marginalized and the assistance to those. I'm going to follow up on inquiry by the chairman. One of my colleagues to my right ranks the individuals, and you rank third from the bottom in a myriad of categories, including patience, courtesy, fairness, impartiality, effective communicator, faithfulness, et cetera. What I was hoping to hear from your response from the chairman is how you can improve upon those scores as opposed to that you're at the 70% level in others. Having people feeling that they have their day in court and they've been treated respectfully is extremely important. I'd like you to comment on how you can go from the very bottom 10% or lower and how you feel you can make improvements.
I certainly am patient with the folks. As a matter of fact, Senator Deeds have seen me adjudicate cases, and I give everyone their day in court. No question about that. I am certainly open to learn any techniques which needs to improve my performance. But let me give you two things in the jurisdictions in which I sit. Our courthouse is very physically challenged facility. When you come to where I sit mainly is in Augusta. We have on an average 300 cases and about 40 people's capacity in the courtroom. It's a logistical nightmare for the police officers, attorneys, as well as the judge to handle that kind of pressure on the docket with that kind of facility. So I'm glad that they are improving and building the new facility, which will eliminate most of the judicial backlog in our jurisdictions with lack of facility, number one. Number two, COVID was a factor too in our jurisdiction where the cases got delayed and hampered, you know. And I am taking full responsibility of what I do in my court, and I'm willing to improve if needed. But I think I'm doing the best I can with the circumstances in which I have cases before me. One case at a time is what I do, and I give everyone their day in court, giving them the best possible outcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
In Judge Shaw's defense, anybody that's ever tried a case in the General District Court of Augusta County knows exactly what he's talking about. It's a very small courtroom. It's packed and full of people that are anxious to be heard. The halls are full. It's very frustrating and hard for people to feel respected in that environment. And Judge Shaw also, the language barrier is one that a lot of people still have trouble understanding. And I understand how that probably contributes to low scores as well.
Well, acoustics in those courts are terrible too, you know. That's part of it. And I certainly can tell you that the nature of the job we have is just that half of the people we make unhappy and half of the people we make happy in giving the decision in their favor or against, you know. So there is bound to be certain number of people who would be dissatisfied with what we do.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Surville.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Judge Shaw, I appreciate I guess you get a new courthouse soon after that referendum that just happened, and hopefully that will help the situation. I just want to emphasize that if you take all the evaluations we've received since 2018, okay, you're like number 7 from the bottom out of 258 judges. Okay, so the courtroom is bad, or, the pandemic was bad, or, I'm going to do my best. That's really not a good score. There's 2 people here that are in the bottom 10 out of 258 that we're going to hear from today. And that's where that score is, usually good things don't happen. And so it would be helpful to hear, I don't know why people don't, or some understanding or appreciation that people don't believe you're fair. I mean, your fairness score is 79.6%. There's a bunch of them that are down there, but the scores that stick out to me on this are, which is, fairness is down there, really low. Respect, no, your respect score is fine. Your knowledge of the law score is very low, 73.4. Faithfulness to the law, 75.8. Effective communicator, that might play into the language issue. Clear decisions, 77. And your overall score is 73.8, which is extraordinarily low. And it sounds to me like there are some specific steps you need to take to get that score up, because we don't see scores like that. That sticks out. And it just can't beat the courtroom. So I just hope that you would take, the reason we have this process is to do what we're doing right now, instead of giving people life tenure like the federal courts do. So I hope you will take what these lawyers are telling us, because these are lawyers that are telling us this who practice in front of you, seriously, and figure out how to get these scores up.
Absolutely. I would like for committee to consider one of our facilitator judges' evaluation when he in person observed me for the whole day, if I may submit that.
We'll certainly receive whatever you have, Judge.
I have a few copies if you need.
Are there additional questions for Judge Shaw? Judge, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other? Okay. Thank you.
Next, Judge Paul Tucker. And Judge Tucker is a brother of Senator McDougal and Senator Surville, because he finished JMU, but he was in my class at law school, Wake Forest. I thought it might. Judge Tucker, you just want to tell the committee how you've enjoyed your experience on the juvenile court bench and why you want to continue.
Well, thank you, Senator. I found my time on the JNDR bench meaningful. I feel like I'm doing something that's of some social good. So that's been a motivation both in the past, and it's really a motivation to continue.
I would note that Judge Tucker's scores are excellent. In spite of what my friend Senator Stanley says, because your JMU and Wake Forest credentials aren't good enough.
Yes, sir. Okay. If you say so, Senator.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, it was not the mention of the universities per se. It was the relation to Ryan McDougal, Scott Surville, and yourself that I thought was not helpful in his reappointment process. Okay. For the record.
Senator Morrissey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I disagree slightly when you say that his scores are excellent. His scores are at the very top, number one. My colleague to my right has continually ranked judges over the last 10 years, and when we point out individuals that are at the very bottom quadrant, I I think it's important that we recognize somebody like Judge Tucker, who, of all of the judges that were coming before us today, is number one in areas that are so important. It's not just the softer scores, patience, courtesy, conscientiousness, but in knowledge of the law, faithfulness to the law, effective communicator, number one out of the people that we're seeing. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I will tell the committee that Judge Tucker's performance on the bench is consistent with the way he's lived his life as long as I've known him for more than 40 years. He's just a patient, figure-it-out guy. And people that are in his courtroom feel respected.
Mr. Chairman, may I also
Senator
add
Delegate
something?
Campbell.
Judge Tucker, I got to tell you too, I mean, you're handling a tough caseload. I mean, the J&D courts are, that caseload's particularly troublesome. When you're, the type of cases you're handling, you're making parents mad, you're making litigants mad. So to have scores this high in that court is commendable, and I commend you for that.
I appreciate that, sir. Thank you.
Are there additional questions for Judge Tucker? If not, thank you very much, Judge.
Yes, sir.
Have a nice Christmas.
Yes, sir. Thank you. You too.
Next is Humes J. Franklin III. Humes J. Franklin III is from the Valleys on the Jerk Commission. He has the distinction of being in high school. When I was in the House of Delegates, I remember, Tripp, you came up here with a group from the local General Assembly delegation to see the General Assembly in action.
That's correct, Senator Deeds. Yeah. Good memory. Yes. Good morning.
Good morning. Just tell us about your experience on the Jerk Commission and why you want to continue.
I've enjoyed it. It's been good. It is a group of 7 people from very diverse backgrounds who I think put a lot of thoughtful work and investigation into the cases brought before it, and I think they do a good job, and I'd like to continue doing it.
Are there questions for Mr. Franklin? Senator Morrissey.
Good afternoon, and thank you for your service on the Judicial Inquiry and Review Commission.
Thank you.
There is legislation that already exists that uses language like shall provide to legislators information on judges who are up for reappointment and who have had a complaint with the Jerk Committee. You're familiar with that?
Yes.
It doesn't use language like possibly or may or you might want to. It's mandatory language of turning those documents over. There has been complaints that legislators are not getting information about judges who are before the Jerk Committee like we're entitled to. Would you comment on that, please?
Well, I know that the Jerk Committee, through Commission Counsel, Mr. Morrow, I'm sure you know Ray Morrow, we submit an annual report pursuant to the statute. The statutes that you guys write are contained in 17.1. And we produced an annual report consistent with that. I don't have a copy of it in front of me. It's Virginia Code Section 17.1.905 that requires us to produce that report. That report is, to my knowledge, produced annually. I'm not aware that we have not done that.
Mr. Chair, let me be more specific.
Sure.
I'm not talking about the report. I'm talking about the specifics, getting into the weeds on a particular judge who has had a complaint filed, keeping it confidential, but allowing the legislators to know what the circumstances were. It appears that we're not getting that information. I think one of the former members of the House of Delegates, Delegate Levine, filed a lawsuit against it. What's your philosophy on giving legislators who are charged with the responsibility of reappointing judges the full flavor of what the complaint was against that judge?
I think Jerk is required to follow the statutes. So whatever is contained in the Chapter 17.1 has to be followed. I mean, the General Assembly makes the laws of this Commonwealth. Judges and Jerk are bound to follow it. It's not a matter of philosophy. We have to follow the law.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Are there additional questions for Mr. Franklin? If not, you might want to stick around. Ms. Grenadier has got a few things to say.
Okay.
She's got 3 minutes.
First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Morrissey for taking the time to comment on how I might be better off presenting things to you all. I do want to work with you. I have to agree with them. I may not have the best delivery, but you haven't walked in my shoes. I've had attempts in my life. I've been in the hospital for being poisoned. I have filed all of these complaints against the judges. They've been clear and concise. The very next day, and the very first one I filed, when I called down there to figure out how to do it, I was told, oh, don't bother filing it. I'm never going to follow through on that complaint. And sure enough, the very next day I got my letter stating we are not going to investigate. Every complaint I have filed, he most likely has not seen because your intake is not following through. The only places we have to go is the JERC and the Virginia State Bar. We have a two-tier system. It's not working. You're choosing people who are covering up for judges that they practice in front of. I don't believe he's probably ever seen any of my complaints because they've never gotten past one night or one day in the office. And I'm not alone. I could name several other people. What we are doing is suing judges in the courts now because we have no other choice. But the judges aren't listening, and they're covering up the crimes of the other judges. We have a real problem. We almost have a communist mafia-style judiciary in Virginia. And I'm not trying to be, over active. My words may not be what you like, and they may not be coming out the best. And I want to work with you. So if you have a suggestion of how I can work with you and how we can work together to make the change, I'm more than willing to listen. I'll make the phone call. I'll drive down here and meet with anybody. But no one's been interested. No one. So if you're going to choose somebody to be on a committee that it's the only place a person has to get justice for the judge, please choose someone with integrity. Please make sure that the office is working, that the intake person isn't just throwing them out. None of us deserve this. We, the people, have a right to walk into a courtroom and have a fair trial, and we're not getting it. And this is where the buck stops.
Okay, I think that's 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Franklin.
Thank you, Senator Deeds.
Okay, next is Judge Susan Stoney from the overcrowded Fairfax General District Court. I think Senator Servell is going to give a little speech. Senator Servell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Come on, Judge. Come on. It's my honor to introduce the Joint Committee to Judge Stoney, who's been on our bench for 6 years now. She's formerly served legal aid pretty much her entire career. She also clerked for Jim Benton back before she started practicing law. But she's been an excellent addition to our bench. You can see from her scores, she's up in the mid to high 90s. Everybody's been very happy with her, and hope you all find her eligible to be recertified.
Okay, despite Senator Servell's recommendation, tell us, Judge, what you've experienced on the bench and why you want to continue.
Well, I will just say that I love being a judge. I love being a judge on the district court for a lot of reasons. It is a very people-oriented court. It's a court of the people, and it's often the court that is what people see. They don't usually, they don't necessarily see circuit court. And I love trying cases. I love resolving disputes. I really enjoy mentoring young lawyers. Now that I've been through my first term, I've begun to do other things in addition to my work on the bench, serving on committees and just finding ways to give back to the community in terms of access to justice. So that's why I just love the job.
Well, thank you. Well, are there questions for Judge Stoney? Senator Morrissey, did you raise your hand? Okay.
No?
Okay. Well, thank you very much, ma'am.
All right, well, thank you, and I appreciate the privilege. Thank you.
Thank you. John Kasabian, who is a candidate for an open seat on that crowded Fairfax General District Court bench. And Senator Servell is also going to give him the kiss of death.
And Mr. Chairman, or Mr. Chairmans, the next two people are actually judicial candidates that we just selected in the Fairfax Judicial Meeting on Monday night. And John Kasabian, we've nominated him, the delegation will nominate him for the Fairfax County General District Court seat that's been vacant due to retirement. But John has been practicing law in Fairfax for about 26 years right now. Served as a prosecutor in Prince William County and in Fairfax County under Paul Ebert and Bob Horan. He's also a part-time prosecutor right now in the city of Fairfax, and he has his own criminal defense practice. His brother Brett is a circuit court judge in Fairfax, and he also practiced with his father until his father passed away at the age of 97. He practiced law all up until
about 6 months before his death.
Yeah, so anyways, John, the family is very well known in Fairfax County. They're wonderful family, wonderful lawyers, and the delegation's honored to offer him for your certification.
Mr. Kasabian, try to save your candidacy.
Good morning. How are you? I'm John Kasabian. I have been serving as a judge, a substitute judge, that is, for a little over 15 years, primarily in Fairfax County. As Senator Servell said, I'm also a prosecutor in Fairfax City, a defense attorney as well, all over the place. I truly enjoy serving. Parents brought not only myself, but my other 3 brothers and my 1 sister up with a understanding of the importance of placing a priority on public service. I truly enjoy it, and I hope to continue with this appointment and follow the laws that you collectively pass.
Thank you very much. Are there questions for Mr. Kasabian? Well, congratulations. I hope things go well for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a
Nice to see you
holiday
all.
season.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Now, I don't want to mispronounce the name. Nadet. I'm sorry.
Devani Nadraja.
Nadraja.
Yeah.
Okay. Ms. Nadraja, Senator Servell is going to do his best to sink the ship for you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Devani Nadraja, come on, stand up here, is the candidate the Fairfax County delegation's offering for the vacant juvenile domestic relations court seat. She's actually an Ivy Leaguer, went to George Washington Law School. She's practiced at a number of different divorce firms in Northern Virginia, right now at Feldsman Tucker. And she's killed it in the bar process, got the highest recommendations from the 5 bars that reviewed her, the highest bar score in our bar election, and we interviewed her the other night. She impressed us to death, and we hope you all will certify her.
Ms. Nadraji,
Yes.
and it looks like you're a domestic relations specialist. Is pretty much
Yes.
all your practice. Well, tell us why you want to be on the juvenile court bench.
Well, thank you all for having me. My name is Devani Nataraja. For me, service to children and families has been my entire mission, my entire life's calling. I've made every decision in my career in service of that. I always say that before I knew what I wanted to do, I knew who I wanted to serve. And so for me, being on the JDR court directly aligns with that mission. And so I feel that public service in this capacity would allow me to have the greatest and the most meaningful impact on this particular population.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there questions for Ms. Nataraja? Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Best
much.
wishes, okay? Judge Scott Geddes. from the Juvenile Court Bench in Roanoke. General District Court, I apologize. Yeah. Judge Geddes, I hope you're well, and I want you to just tell us a little bit about your experience on the bench and why you want to continue.
Yes, sir. I've always treated my time on the bench as a tremendous opportunity. I don't think it's anything that anybody really expects or thinks that they deserve, but I hope that the time that I've spent on the bench over the last 6 years has been beneficial to my community. Certainly, I focus on that. I focus on just what it means. It's not, these are folks from my community that are appearing in front of me. So I try to treat all of those people with respect, but also remember that General District Court is typically the face of the Commonwealth. This is the most common place, the most common interaction that folks are going to have with the Commonwealth. And I try to remind myself that of that every day. I think that my courtroom is a fairly friendly place for those folks to appear. I try to make it very accessible. I try to answer questions for the folks that appear in front of me.
And Judge Geddes, I just note 2 things. Number 1, your scores are excellent. Your scores for patience and courtesy indicates you're showing litigants the respect they've got to have on for some of them. Those the most important day they'll have in court. But number 2, you didn't work in a prosecutor's office before you went on the bench. You came from private practice. So, are there questions for Judge Geddes?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Stanley.
More of a comment, but having known Judge Geddes in his private practice, having had the honor of being involved in court cases when he was an attorney, but also seeing him in a court of law, as you wait for your case to be called, you see how he treats those who are not represented by counsel. And I must say that he makes everyone feel the same, and he's deferential, and he understands that many people are there for the first time, and he treats them with all due respect. And those that are, as we say in the business, frequent flyers, he treats with the same respect as well. So he's been a real credit to the bar there in the Roanoke Valley, and I think really we're very lucky to have him on the bench. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Are there others? Even though Senator Stanley tried to sink the ship, are there other questions or comments? Thank you, Judge Geddes.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Next is Judge Douglas Fleming, a circuit court judge from Fauquier, Loudoun, Rappahannock.
Good morning.
Judge Fleming, if you just want to tell us a little bit about your experience on the bench and why you want to continue.
Well, thank you for that question. When I first took the bench, I had indicated that I was at a point in my career where I wanted to serve, and I felt that being a jurist is service, but I don't think I really thought particularly how it would be service. And now that I'm nearing the end of my first term, I think I have a bit more clarity on the particulars of that, at least as it relates to me. Primarily, I feel that my opportunity in my corner of the world has been to take the bench every day that I take the bench and have people leave the courtroom feeling that the process was fair. I want to get the right result, the right ruling, but the right ruling is often, I think, subject to debate or disagreement, sometimes even between courts. But I think what jurists can control, we can control or at least what I do, before the first bit of testimony is taken, I greet everyone. I make sure that I pronounce their names correctly. I've had some very interesting comments on that. People thanking me for taking the time to learn how to pronounce their names correctly. I won't go past an individual until I know I've pronounced their names correctly. Greeted them, and then explained my rulings, and taking the time to do that. I realize that sometimes I take an extra 5, 10, sometimes 20 minutes, even a half hour at the end of a matter to make sure that people understood why I was ruling the way I am ruling, and that I repeat arguments back so that they know that I heard them. That may not, in some people's minds, be the most efficient way to use time, but to me, I think it's the fairest. My daughter gave me a volume a few years ago called Tough Cases, and it was judges from around the country who have written short chapters on their toughest case. Many of those cases you probably have heard of. They received national attention, but some didn't. And the one that meant most to me was a civil case that was no special significance, where the judge discussed the procedure and what he did in this very complicated civil case to ensure the procedural fairness for the litigants and the lawyers. And there was a quote in that chapter, and I don't think he meant this literally, but I understood what he was saying. He said, "They don't pay me to make right rulings. They pay me to be fair." And I think if people leave the courtroom and feel they've had their day in court, feel that the judge was respectful to them and validated them and explained his or her ruling, I hope that in most people's minds that would engender respect for the system. And our system is referred to as a system of justice. So I'm under no illusions that I'll make everybody happy with a ruling. I readily admit sometimes I make nobody happy with a ruling. But I do try to make everybody satisfied with the fairness of the proceeding.
Mr. Chairman.
And so that's what I try to do.
Okay, thank you, Judge. Senator Servel's got a question.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's more of a statement, I guess, but I've known Judge Fleming now for probably 20 years, had a couple tough cases with him before he took the bench, and I just want to note he put in for the Court of Appeals with us, and State Bar found him highly qualified for the Court of Appeals on a 14-0 vote. So did VTLA and the defense lawyers, the insurance defense lawyers also. VTLA and the defense lawyers found you fair. So his scores are excellent, and I think he's done an excellent job in the 8 years he's been up there.
Senator Morrissey's got a question.
Mr. Chairman, just when everything was going so well for Judge Fleming, Senator Serval had to weigh in. Thank you for your service, Judge.
Thank you, Senator Deeds.
Are there questions? Okay, thank you so much, Judge.
Ladies and gentlemen of the committee, thank you. Senator Serval, thank you for your remarks.
Yeah, no problem.
Next is Judge Pamela Brooks, who's a juvenile and domestic relations. Okay.
Good morning, committee. It's my honor to introduce Judge Pamela Brooks to the Joint Committee today. She was selected by her peers to be JDR Chief Judge since 2016. She's a lead judge for Best Practice Team for foster care cases, as well as Juvenile Detention Alternative Initiative Team. She's also the current president of the Virginia Council of JDR Judges, but I think what is most valuable about Judge Brooks is that she brings a real-life experience to this bench that benefits our foster youth, which I know is something I care a lot about, as well as this committee, so it is my pleasure to introduce Judge Pamela Brooks.
Thank you, Delegate
Delaney. Judge, if you just want to tell us a little bit about your experience on the bench and why you'd like to continue.
Yes, sir. Good morning. First of all, in my opinion, it's the best job ever. I feel very fortunate to have this job. As a former foster child who grew up in a home with issues of poverty and substance abuse and domestic violence, I feel I bring a unique perspective to the families that I have served. We have a unique opportunity to have a great impact on children and families in chaos
I am always very proud when I can engage with my kids who come in front of me, and I call them my kids, and they can come and talk to me about, hey, I got a job, or I'm graduating from high school, or I've submitted an application, to go to college. And it's just very impactful to me to be able to engage with these children and families.
Thank you, Judge. Are there questions from the committee, from the committees? Thank you, Judge, very much.
Thank you very much. You all
Best
have
wishes.
a great day. Thank you.
You too. Next, we've got Judge Melissa Cupp, who's a juvenile and domestic relations sister court from the same circuit, which seems to be crowded circuit. Judge Cupp, welcome.
Hi, good morning.
You just want to just tell us a little bit about your experience on the bench and why you'd like to continue.
Okay, yes, sir. I feel like I've had a good first 5.5 years, almost said 6 years. I wanted to be a juvenile court judge because I, first of all, really like kids, and it has turned out to be what I thought it was going to be. I think the juvenile court bench is an amazing place to work. You're working with young people who have a possibility of heading in a couple of different directions, and generally, most kids are going to come through the court and do really well. And that has been what's most meaningful about the job is working with some young people who have a lot of room for improvement and a life ahead of them that we want to try to keep on track.
Judge, can you tell me how you got from Georgia to Oklahoma to Sperryville?
Yes, sir. I'm from Virginia. I grew up my whole life in Virginia. I was born in Georgia. My dad worked for the U.S. Geological Survey, so they moved around a lot, but we moved to Virginia when I was 1, and I went to Oklahoma for law school.
Anybody got any serious questions for the judge? Thank you very much. Best wishes, okay?
Okay, thank you. I appreciate
Thank you. Judge Penny Azcarate, okay? She's a juvenile, or she's a circuit court judge from Fairfax County.
Yeah. Yeah.
She handled the Johnny Depp case.
She did.
Ooh.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, it's my honor to present Judge Penny Azcarate to the committee. Judge Azcarate, she was a General District Court judge, and then she became a circuit court judge, and now the other, was it 15 of you guys in the circuit court elected her to be the chief judge of the Fairfax County Circuit Court, which is quite an endeavor she has to deal with. But yeah, she, aside from being an ex-Marine and mother of 4? Okay, former Marine, I'm sorry, and a mother of 4 and avid cyclist. Yeah, she spent about 5 weeks with a certain Hollywood celebrity in Fairfax, and I would dare all of you to go on Twitter and search for Azcarate expressions, and you'll see all the facial expressions that became famous across the country during that trial.
I don't know if he's here to help me or...
Well, he keeps standing up and sending people to their doom. And Judge, I'm hopeful that's not going to happen in your case. But if you would please just tell us a little bit about your experience on the bench and why you want to continue, especially after the Johnny Depp case.
I had to think about it. No, I love my job every day. I was on the district court bench, like he said, and I was on the circuit court bench now for this term. Being chief judge brings its challenges, but it's also very rewarding because I'm able to move the court into a new direction and to keep using the technology that we got from the pandemic and start using that to help the court continue to be really a great place and get access to justice is really what I've been working on as chief judge, and I want to continue doing that. But it's such a great job, and I'm very humbled to be able to do this profession, and I really enjoy it, and that's why I'm here.
Okay, are there questions for Judge Azcarate? Senator Stanley.
And I'm not going to be able to answer that, Senator Stanley.
No, it's a comment, Mr. Chair. I'm now from Southside Virginia. I try not to ever admit that I lived up in Fairfax and practiced for there a while, but unfortunately with Surville here, I can't avoid it, and also Senator Peterson. But as a prosecutor, as a judge, one of the fairest prosecutors you could ever have in the Fairfax County the Fairfax County Courthouse and Commonwealth's Attorney's Office as a judge. I know that it was wonderful to see you on TV because I could tell everybody, I know her, but to see how you even handled that case is just as consistent as you've ever been in every case you've ever handled, whether as a prosecutor or a judge. So I commend you for all of that and handling that with an incredible amount of deference and grace. So thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.
Both Servell and Stanley. Now, good or bad, I don't know.
I don't know. You've got to be careful.
Back to zero. Additional questions, serious questions for Judge Ascaronte. Okay, thank you, ma'am. There's a couple of people that want to speak, so you may want to
Do you want me to sit down?
Just sit down, yes, ma'am, that's
Okay.
fine. Ms. Grenadier, you've got 3 minutes.
With everything I've been through, I became a certified ADA advocate. Part of being a certified ADA advocate is going into the courtroom with people, observing what judges are doing, and reading their court documents to see where the issues might be. It's not acting as a lawyer. It's acting out of somebody whose interest is in justice. I'm here today to talk about Tom Ward's case, and he'll also be talking. I went with him to court on the day that he was in front of the judge. She didn't even give him a voice. She didn't allow him to speak. But he's got one of those cases, no different than Chris Mackney, where Fairfax County basically bullied him to death. I'm aware of this book because part of my story's in it. You also have Henry Hudson, who brags in his book, he was a Fairfax judge, how he lied to all of you to get that judgeship, and then only to move on to federal court. The integrity of our judges is very important, and it's very important that a person is heard. This man, his wife has taken his kids to Texas. He's given very little time with them, and he's forced to go down there. They've hired private detectives, but not only that, she started the scheme from the very beginning, which is a very typical one, when a person wants out and they want more money. She had private POs put against him. And then on one email, at the end of the PO, he was jailed after he'd been cleared in the court by Judge Shannon. Judge Bernhardt jailed him. And when he tried to go back and has been trying to get justice, and this could happen to any man, and it can happen to any woman. When somebody wants a divorce, when they use the scheme to start using the police in order to have you arrested and give you jail time, it ruins your career. It takes everything away from you, which it has done to him. And the court in Fairfax has ignored it, and the same judge has been on it. And when he's tried to have hearings, they've been denied him. Judge Tran did recuse himself when he saw that I was working with him. I think that you need to take a little closer look at what's going on in Fairfax County, because families, guardianships are a real problem there, and I've been in court with quite a few people. But to see the way she did not give him a voice in the courtroom was very disconcerting. And I ask that you think about that. Thank you.
The next person we've got is Thomas Ward. Mr. Ward, you've got 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm Thomas Ward. I plead to the board here to look at a few cases in Fairfax, CL 2017-03891 that probably will be appealed. MI 2021 533 and 532. MI 2019 517. CL 2022 7040. That appeal number for that case is 1336224. That is before the appeal. These cases show what's going on in these courts. I am a father who is a stay-at-home dad. I got accused With the police even stated nothing ever happened. That was all a setup, what is called weaponization of the process. And the courts are supporting this. And the courts are denying one's basic rights of discovery. They're denying due process. I have hearings that I motioned that were set for hearings, and then they weren't allowed to be heard. This goes back to Honorable White, who was the chief judge before. And I asked this board to really take a serious look, not just for myself. I've gotten to know many, many persons, not just Fairfax. This is going on in courts across Virginia and across the country. That I get to see my kids for 5 hours once a month, and I have to travel to Texas to see them, where I'm being harassed, I'm being stalked, and the court's okay with this stuff. I have to pay my own transportation to go see my children. And the courts pick, as they say, they pick one side, a winner and a loser, and then they stay with it. They don't even want to look at the facts. They don't even want to allow the facts to be discovered. They don't want to allow due process to have motions heard so the truth can be out. As Mr. Fleming was so kind and clear about what was going on, it's about a fair process. It's about due process, which is the law. And I'm not here to say I'm for or against anybody. I'm asking the board to look at these cases and see what's going on in these cases and ask yourself why. Why are they being appealed? Why isn't there basic due process going on? Why is motions heard, set on trial, the CCR, which doesn't allow any recording, doesn't allow a transcriber, they set these cases behind the scenes, but then they don't even allow the case to be heard when it's set. When they set cases for 10 months in predatory and judiciary as well as unfair processes, and this is what the court, you all need to understand. This affects children. The children have a right to their parents. A parent shouldn't be taken away my right as a parent, which I have been in this case. This is wrong. I'm the stay-at-home dad who made sure those kids were safe. And there never was, never is anything that ever happened to these children, nor the person who alleges stuff. And I think that's what I'm asking is all of you look at yourself, look in the mirror, and look at what's happening to these children. I have parents who are teachers who are asking over and over again, Tom, why are these kids so troubled? And I also ask that you take a look at a video called Erasing Families. It's the best documentary from a child's perspective. It's called Erasing Families. It's a documentary about children and the effects.
I think you've gone over 3 minutes, Mr. Ward, but I think Mr. Senator Morrissey's got a question.
Sure.
Just a comment. First of all, thank you for your comments.
Sure.
I thought they were measured. I think they're sincere. I think they're heartfelt. One thing, and I can assure you the people up here and those on Senate, Judiciary, and House courts do listen, okay? One suggestion, not when it comes to your own case, but one of the best things to do with legislators is, not during this session, but meet with them, talk to them, and express a concern regarding a policy issue. Not your own case,
Yeah.
but just, and I'm telling you, it's the best time to get the ear of a legislator, and you will be listened to. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, and I want to clarify on that. What's going on is you have DA assistants who do wrong in the court, and they know it. And then they try to come back to do private work to fix these things. You need to be aware of that happening as well.
Thank you so much, Judge. Thank you.
I do appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now
And
we've got.
I want to be very clear. I'm not here to be political, to say one side or another on a person. I'm asking that there's good due process in case, which is not happening.
Thank you, sir.
Do you want me to respond?
You don't need to.
Okay. Well, if I could just say, just that motion was, no, okay, all right. Have a good day.
Thank you. Judge Steve Shannon. I don't know. He did used to be somebody.
And Mr. Chairman, I have the honor of presenting to you all Judge Steve Shannon, who many of you all, I assume, will recall. He unfortunately went to my law school, overlapped with Senator McClellan, who left the room when he came in. I don't know where she went. But Steve's been a wonderful judge in the court. You can see he got high scores, and I hope you all take it easy on him.
Judge Shannon, it's good to see you, and if you just like to tell us a little bit about your experience on the bench and why you want to continue.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. It's very nice to be back, although I don't remember being in this building before. I want to thank the General Assembly for giving me this opportunity to serve. I can say honestly, I haven't had a bad day at work in 7.5 years, and boiled down to its essentials, the role of a circuit court judge is to resolve conflicts in the community, applying the rule of law when, for whatever reason, those conflicts can't be resolved outside of court. And I love helping people. That's why I got into public service in the first place, and this has just been an extraordinary opportunity. I hope that I've earned the opportunity to be reappointed for another 8-year term. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, are there questions of Judge Shannon? Okay, Judge, you just want to take a seat. There are a few people that want to have a few words.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Ms. Grenadier.
Again, I will be talking about Mr. Ward's case, and I actually want to say something good about Judge Shannon, which should shock everybody. He did find Mr. Ward innocent of an email that was sent about his children to his ex-wife, that all the lawyers had said the emails had to go between the two of them. He did not agree to extend the protective order because it fit the guidelines of the divorce. They then went to the police and an MI was put on him. And with his security clearance, he has not been able to work. This was done deliberately, intently, and it was done by Judge Bernhardt. But Judge Shannon did do the right thing, and there's been no recourse. The other thing that I'd like to comment on is something you all did, and it's not being allowed, and I think you should know it, because it's something that really is a great tool for parents. It's when one parent refuses to allow a child to be seen by the other parent or phone calls, you put into place missed visitation laws. The problem with that is that the Commonwealth attorney is not following through and the magistrates are not allowing the parents to put in complaints. And I've seen this happen now with 3 different families. And where they did allow it with Mr. Ward, they never told him when the hearing was, and the Commonwealth attorney ignored giving him access to the hearing and to ever interviewing him as to what took place. And so he was unable to follow through with that. So we have a lot of different opportunities that we can make with change, but we have a real problem with how the judges are choosing winners and losers. I was chosen as a loser. I understand the feeling. And it's kind of a David and Goliath. It's very much a prayerful thing when you're chosen that way. And in the stones, David carried 5 stones: obedience, faith, prayer, Holy Spirit, and service. And what you find with people who are standing up, it's their faith that's giving them the courage to do it. I know it's my faith that's given me the courage to move forward. And so I hope you think about the laws you have put into place and how you can get the police and the magistrates to enforce them, because they need to be. They're good laws. That was a really good law you put into place. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yolanda Bell.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Yolanda Bell. I'm an Air Force veteran with service-connected disabilities, and I live in what were the 13th and 29th districts. Senator Jeremy McPike is my senator, and Delegate Dan Carone is my delegate. I oppose and ask you to please vote against the reappointment of Judge Stephen C. Shannon. Judge Shannon was a key player in my sister's untimely death. It is ANOVA v. Enri Anastasia Adams. I believe it's CL 17268. If not for the plenary guardianship she was placed under by Judge Shannon, she would still be alive today. My sister Anastasia Adams did not have a terminal disease. She was not in a vegetative state or minimally vegetative state. On the contrary, as evidenced by the videos of her speaking and interacting with others before they took her, and by the envoy's own nursing staff admission that she spoke to her, asking her about her baby daughter. Judge Shannon, by his own admission, as evidenced several times in the official court transcript, that my sister, Miss Adams, was blessed to have a sister who without a doubt loved and cared for her, and there was no indication of neglect, exploitation, or abuse, which had not even been alleged. Instead, in my opinion, Judge Shannon blindly handed over complete custody of my sister, lock, stock, and barrel, to individuals who neglected her, allegedly allowed her to be abused in horrific ways, and then ended her life, killed her, solely on the grounds, quote unquote, I would not consent to her discharge because I felt that she was still too ill. A point that the Medicare Office of Hearing and Appeals agreed with in their appeal decision, but this legal opinion was ignored. He signed the ANOVA's order versus writing his own to ensure that my sister was safe. Judge Shannon then became unavailable. Try as I might, I could not get back in front of him for 9 months. My sister suffered greatly in those 9 months because of Judge Shannon's initial action and lack of follow-up. Delegates Hope and Campbell, he's gone, saw the pictures of what was done to my sister. And you can ask them. I saw the look on Delegate Hope's face when he looked at those pictures. It's shocking what was done to her. What happened to my sister should never happen to anyone. In my research of ANOVA guardianship cases over the last 5 years, Judge Shannon has only utilized a limited guardianship once, and that was right after my sister was killed. He then resumed plenary guardianships, kowtowing to ANOVA and their contracted professional guardians. So in my opinion, Judge Shannon no longer has or demonstrates the integrity to sit on the bench and should not be reappointed. I thank you for your time and attention.
Next is Thomas Ward.
Thank you again, Your Honor, and the Chair and the Board. I want to bring attention to a few things. One, I want to say that Shannon was probably one of the only judges that I've had to deal with of multiple that actually had some honor to listen to both sides of the case. And with that, I do want to find a way of forgiveness to the other judges in this case. And at the same time, I will want to say that an only error that did happen in that case of the MI and the PO is instead of issuing an order, just an oral order was done. It takes 5 minutes to do an order or issue an order of denial. So it's written because under the Virginia law, if there's not an order done, it's not an order. It doesn't hold. So the only thing I ask is that judges learn or make sure they don't do it on purpose to not issue an order. And with that, I think it's important to understand there's some good cases which you guys should be aware of. There's a case called Boyd versus the Commonwealth of Virginia. It's an appeals case in 2020 that did finally say if people are holding kids out of state, it's a felony if they do not bring them back. In my case, my children were not brought back 3 times intentionally, and the DA just looked the other way and didn't want to help with it. It's important to know that we explain the rulings very well. It's important we have a good procedure in play. It's important we have due process in the courts. It's important we allow the fundamental thing of both witnesses and, most importantly, discovery. I was denied discovery, so I couldn't even get the facts to the court. And it's important that we understand that what's happening in these court cases is what is called a Chinese firewall. You have courts and judges on both sides of the case. If there's a criminal case and a civil case, and it's designed purposefully to bias the cases. That is totally wrong. A judge should be on one side or the other. There should not be a Chinese firewall. I've lived in Russia. I've lived in China. That's how that system works. Is that how it works here in Virginia? Is that appropriate? I think there should be some serious thought in how these processes are worked to keep these standards separate. To have judges on both sides of the cases, that is creating bias, creating prejudice, and it's not in the best interest of children. And that these judges make sure we ensure that they hold up the canons of their office, that they hold up inherent authority, and they hold up the Virginia bar. When lawyers are coming in giving false information to the courts, that is sanctionable. And that is happening in these cases.
Thank you, sir. Your time's up.
Thank you, very honored. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Judge. Judge Frogale, is that how you pronounce it, from Alexandria? A juvenile domestic relations district court judge from City of Alexandria, yes. Judge Frogale, Judge, Delegate
Yes,
Herring.
yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I'm honored to introduce to you Judge Frogale. She started her career in 1978 as an assistant Commonwealth attorney, moved on over to the Eastern District Court as an assistant U.S. attorney, became a JDR court judge in 2005, and she's been serving as our chief judge since 2008.
Thank you,
Judge
Delegate
Frogale.
Judge Frogale, just tell us what little bit about your experience on the bench and why you want to continue. Senator Norman came, so this must be an important interview.
Well, I started in 2005 as a judge, and I've been on the bench for 17 years. I'm the chief judge now. We're a small court. There's only 2 of us, but I love the community. I've been in the community working for over 40 years now, either as an attorney or an assistant U.S. attorney, all in Alexandria District. And it's a very, very important job to me. I love public service. I've been in public service all my life. I'm very, very honored to have the opportunity to serve again, if you're willing.
And Judge, I know even though you don't look at, you won't be able to serve a full term. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah.
And thank you for that kind compliment.
Well,
I worked hard at that.
I wonder how the General District or the Juvenile and Domestic Relations District Court of the City of Alexandria gets by with only 2 judges, when Fairfax County always seems to need more judges.
Delegate Herring said we're efficient.
You're efficient. Yeah. Are there questions for Judge Frogale?
I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, the next judge is a circuit judge from Prince William County, Tracy Hudson. Well, we're doing, yeah, we're on time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's my honor to present to the committee Judge Tracy Hudson. He's been on the Prince William Circuit Court now for about 8 years. He served on the General District Court before that and had a thriving personal injury practice before that. But he's very highly regarded in the bar. His wife actually was the executive director for the Prince William Bar Association for years until she was retired about 6 months ago. But I think he's done a wonderful job, and hope you all would find it within your ambit to recertify him for another term. Thank you, Senator.
Judge Hudson, you're going to have to explain why you went from Martinsville to Manassas. But just to tell us a little bit about your experience on the bench and why you'd like to continue.
Well, I started out on the General District Court, served 3 years there. That was a very beneficial experience for me. It taught me how to manage a courtroom, how to deal with pro se litigants. I moved to the circuit court in 2015, and honestly, I found it to be a very fulfilling experience. I feel like I can have a positive impact on people, particularly things like child custody decisions that really impact families. And then on the criminal side, things that really hopefully have a positive impact on the community. So I appreciate the opportunity to serve, and it's been a very fulfilling experience. I hope I can make a difference in my community.
Thank you, Judge. Are there additional questions for Judge Hudson? I don't see any hands, so thank you very much. Best wishes.
Thank you, Senator.
Next, we've got another judge from Prince William County, Judge Kimberly Irving.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's also my honor to present to you all.
Senator Survell.
Thank you. Judge Kimberly Irving, who I believe is serving as the chief judge right now? I am. Yeah, she's the chief judge of the Prince William County Court. She's been on for 8 years as well. She served actually as a capital defender, did a lot of really difficult capital defense cases before she became a judge. She has also been, the Prince William Circuit's actually been a very high volume, difficult circuit for the last few years, which is why we gave them a 7th Circuit Court judge last year, because they were just getting killed with all the work they do. But anyway, she's been a very effective manager of that court, and pretty fair in her evaluations. I think look okay, and hope you would find it in your discretion to recertify her as well.
Judge Irving, if you just explain to us a little bit about your experience on the bench and why you'd like to continue.
Sure. I have thoroughly enjoyed the last 7.5 years being a judge. I think that the beauty of the Northern Virginia area that I sit is we see a lot of different kinds of cases, and it's different than being a lawyer. I was focused mainly on criminal defense and even more narrowly on capital defense beforehand. So the ability to handle the land use cases and domestic cases has been fantastic. This year I had the opportunity to start our drug court. We were one of only 2 jurisdictions that didn't have a drug court. We are about 5 months into that. We meet every other Friday. I am the judge for the drug court docket, and I'd like to see that through. I'd like to keep moving things. Senator Serval is correct. We have a very high volume area, and so working hard as the chief to get us a 7th judge, we appreciate you all allowing that to happen, has been helpful. I think there's a lot that still needs to be done to get us moving effectively so cases can be heard timely in the county.
Okay, thank you, Judge. Are there questions for this judge?
Mr. Chair.
Senator Morrissey.
Good morning, Judge.
Good morning.
First and foremost, thank you for your service. I'm one of the, I guess, of many probably advocates for these drug courts. Can you tell me, in the short time that you've been with your drug court, your opinion on how effective it is and getting people to actually kick the disease of addiction to psychotropic drugs?
It's drug court. You have to have a strong skin for it. We met yesterday, and there was an individual where a lot of people said, should be kicked out, and the reality is the individual was acting like an addict acts, and we've instead found another program for her to go into. There is an individual in drug court that I always put last because, frankly, he just makes me smile. He has now been sober 69 days as of yesterday, so 70 days if last night was a good night for him. And he's in our phase 2 and really marching forward into phase 3. I don't think he's ever gone this long. Heroin had been his drug of choice, moving into opiates as far as pills go, and then the last thing we finally got him to kick was the alcohol, which he was utilizing instead at great amounts. He looks great. He sounds great. It's hard because it's easy to say statistically, what does this look like? We're not going to get, every person in there is not going to be successful in the way our brains think of success. When he came off of heroin, that was a success. When he stopped using pills, that was a success. We had to be like, okay, now we need to talk about, he had a love for Fireball. What do we need? What kind of partnerships do we need? We start working with the drug addicted community, and you have to work with treatment providers, and you have to work in that and start figuring out, because it's not a one size fits all, and it is a 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but there's a reward of, maybe at some point in the cycle of addiction in the way it affects the community and criminal justice. If that can stop, you'll see a decrease in your property crimes. You'll see a decrease in, crimes that we would put as crimes of violence on the burglaries, the kind of things that people who are really in the throngs of addiction will do almost anything to get. So there are successes even in our short 5 months of being operational that I am proud of, and am hopeful that as we move forward from our pilot number of 10 people that we can expand our drug court and start really working within the needs of the community.
Senator Morrissey.
Mr. Chairman, her enthusiasm is palpable. I'll say this, just a comment. What I've noticed is that it's never steady progression when somebody is in a drug court. They don't keep moving forward throughout sometimes a 2-year process. They may take a step back, a judge puts them in jail for 5 days or whatnot, but then they make 3 steps forward and then there's a step back. But eventually, after sometimes 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, Mr. Chair, it works. I've never seen something as rewarding as when they have drug court graduation and their fellow drug court attendees cheer them on for that success that they got. So continued good luck to you and your drug court in what I think is the most important criminal justice program that we have.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Are there questions for Judge Irving? Judge Irving. Okay, Judge Irving, Ms. Bell wants to speak, and my note says she wants to speak in favor. Is that correct? Yes, sir. Judge, if you just want to sit down for a minute.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I'm back, Yolanda Bell. I appeared before Judge Irving pro se on a motion hearing for a matter that I had to bring against my former landlord. And Judge Irving treated me with dignity and respect. She made sure I understood what things meant and explained it in a way that I could understand. And I thank her for that, because in my experience, this is rare, as a good majority of judges I have encountered tend to treat pro se litigants with disdain, making an already stressful situation worse. So I therefore support Judge Irving's reappointment to the bench, and I thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
The next judge is Judge Larry Willis, who is a Juvenile and Domestic Relations District Court judge from the city of Chesapeake. You go? We don't need it. We're not going to do anything. Judge Willis, how are you? If you would just tell us a little bit about your experience on the bench and why you'd like to be reappointed.
All right, I am Larry Willis. I've been on the Juvenile and Domestic Relations District Court bench in Chesapeake for 23 years, and I feel like I finally know everything that I'm supposed to be doing. I know all the procedures, processes, and we're making every effort to do things as efficiently as we can. We've got 3 relatively new judges. 2 have been there for 2 years and 1 for, I think, 3. And so we've got a pretty good balance, and feel like we're giving the citizens of Chesapeake the best that we can possibly provide them.
Judge, when I look at these scores, the 2 that stick out are the ones that relate to fairness and allowing lawyers appropriate latitude to try their cases. Have you looked at those and thought about what's going on there?
I know exactly. The problem is that our court has, for the last 20 years, been highly overloaded, and so I schedule cases. And so if an attorney comes in and says, we need 2 hours for a contested custody case, we give them 2 hours, and then we schedule something after that. So if they come in and start to take an hour to do 1 witness, and they've got 5 other witnesses there, I tell them, your time ends at this point. And there's, oh, but we need to go longer. So I do hear that from some attorneys, that they would like to be able to have all day or 2 days or 3 days. And what I've seen is that would put us, instead of 4 or 5 months out, it would put us a year out.
How many judges are in the juvenile bench down
We
there?
have 4 judges now.
4 judges. You think we might move some from Fairfax down there? Are there serious questions for Judge Willis?
Mr. Chair. Yeah, so I've been appearing before Judge Willis for 22 years, and his analysis of why those scores or the way they are is exactly on target. I've been subject to that time limitation, and from a practitioner standpoint, it is frustrating, but it's a necessary evil, and I can see why the necessity of running the court that way, especially with 3 new judges, has resulted in some of those scores. But I really don't think that that's a reflection on his abilities or the way he runs his court, but a function of necessity because of the caseload.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Leftwich. Are there questions? Well, thank you, Judge. Good, best wishes to you.
All right, thank you.
Judge Johnny Morrison.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator
members of the
Lucas.
committee, I don't have the same distinction as most of my colleagues here on the joint committee in that I'm not a lawyer, but I am born and bred in the city of Portsmouth, as is or was Judge Johnny Morrison. And even though I don't practice in the courts, as you might imagine, because I'm one of the longest standing, maybe political figures in our city, there's a pipeline of information that comes to me almost on a daily basis, and sometimes when it has to do with the judiciary, almost on a point-by-point basis. And I can tell you that Judge Johnny Morrison, as you all know, served as a Commonwealth attorney in the city of Portsmouth and is the longest-serving circuit court judge in the Commonwealth of Virginia. He's done a good job, and I can tell you of late he's had some medical issues that might have caused him to slow down and might have completely taken others out of the process altogether. But Judge Morrison persevered in light of his medical and physical issues. As you all know, I'm standing between the 2 gentlemen, one of whom gave a kidney for the other to live. Delegate Don Scott gave a kidney to Judge Johnny Morrison. Judge Morrison has the determination like no one else I've ever seen to be able to go into that courtroom on a daily basis when we knew he was doubled over in pain to do his job because he loves the law. And so it is for that reason that I stand before you today to highly recommend him for reappointment to his seat. And so with that, unless Delegate Scott has something to say, I'd like for those of you who've been around for a lot of years, and especially more than 30, to reintroduce you to my judge, Johnny Morrison, and to others to introduce you, Judge Johnny Edward Morrison.
And Judge Morrison, when he was in law school, lived with at Dr. Pleasant's house. Judge Gerald Jones had the same room after you left, I think, there.
Yes, sir. I called him. I did call him Senator Dees, and when I was about to graduate, I called him and told him that if he needed someone to stay, he could come and look at this place.
Yeah.
And he did, and that's where he stayed for 3 years. The rent was very cheap.
Well, Dr. Pleasance was gone by the time I was around there a whole lot, but Jackie Pleasance was certainly one of the nicest people I've ever known. Judge Morrison, if you just want to tell us a little bit about your experience on the bench and why you'd like to continue.
Yes, sir. Dr. Pleasant was one of my mentors. He was my doctor for 7 years, undergrad in law school. My experience on the bench, first I was a Commonwealth attorney. And then when I did ascend to the bench, it was a new experience for me. I'm from Portsmouth. I grew up on welfare, grew up in public housing, but I did go to a good school, Washington Elite, undergrad in law. And I always wanted to come back home. So when I did get on the bench, my goal was to be firm but fair, to be patient, treat everybody like kings and queens. And there are a number of judges who were outside also that appeared before me, and some I did hire. When I was common attorney, like some of the other judges in Portsmouth, worked for me when I was a Commonwealth attorney. And I've had a number of judges in Portsmouth, both circuit, general district, and juvenile, to be appointed to the bench, and I always advise them to, first order of business is number one, be kind, be prepared, know the law, and be patient, and treat everybody like kings and queens, even pro se litigants. Now, I'll be honest with you. When I saw my evaluations, I was a little taken back. And all I can say is that I apologize. I didn't think that was me, but apparently so. I have been under a lot of pressure with respect to pain, health issues, but I thought I was doing everything I should have done. But after my surgery, the transplant, that's when it was brought to my attention that I look better and I act better. My wife would tell me, and even some of the lawyers said, well, we knew you were in pain because a lot of times you barely made it to the bench because you had a cane. That's not me. And a lot of times I experienced that pain because I did implement a drug treatment court program in Portsmouth. And I know what opioids and narcotics can do to the body, so I wouldn't take them. Even with gout, I just wouldn't take them. But so after looking at those evaluations, I know for a fact that I can do better, and I will do better. This is the end of my career.
I know you were born in 1952, so you won't be able to serve a full term if you're reappointed this time.
I understand that. Yes,
Are there questions from the committee, from the committees? Senator Morrissey.
Good morning, Judge.
Good morning, Senator.
First and foremost, thank you for your service on the bench for as long as you've served, and good luck in your dealing with your future health issues. I just want to say thank you. You acknowledged the low scores, and you're determined to do something about it. That's the first step. And dealing with some of the issues and being in the abject pain that you've been in, you have all of our sympathy. But please remember, as we move forward, those people coming in there, some of them into your courtroom, it's the only time that they're going to see the workings of the judicial system, and they just want to have their day in court. Again, you recognize the low scores. It sounds like, Mr. Chair, Judge Morrison is determined to do that. And again, thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir.
Delegate Scott.
I know I'm biased. I view Judge Morrison as a newcomer to the law several years ago. He was a mentor. He was someone who carried himself with the decorum in the courtroom and demanded respect in the courtroom at all times, and he demanded that the attorneys be prepared. As a person who was new, that was an eye-opening experience to understand and see the level of professionalism that Judge Morrison demanded. I cannot appear before him anymore for the reasons that you heard, but I know the type of man he is, husband, father that he is, and I know that he will do better as we move forward. And I know he looks like a new person because of his health has improved greatly. So I just want to hopeful that we will certify him without exception. Thank you.
Are there questions for Judge Morrison? Thank you, Judge. Best wishes to you.
Thank you very much. And again, I apologize for the mask, but I'm still under treatment. I'm not in the pain anymore. But for the grace of God and his mercy and my guardian angel, Delegate Scott, I'm not in the pain anymore, but I'm still under treatment. And they did advise me to continue to mask up until January or February of 2023.
Thank you very much,
Thank you very
Judge.
much.
Have a nice Christmas. Judge Brian Meals, a Juvenile and Domestic Relations District Court Judge from Portsmouth, which also seems to have a lot of judges.
Good morning.
Judge, I'm sorry, Delegate Scott.
Oh, I'm sorry. Not yet. No, I'm joking. I just want to introduce Judge Brian Mills. He's a JDOR judge in Portsmouth, Virginia. He has been on, I think this is he just completed he's completing his first term of appointment by the General Assembly. Judge Mills, very knowledgeable of the law. He was mainly civil litigant before he went to the JDR bench, but since he's been on the JDR bench, you know, that is a labor of love if you've ever been working in juvenile domestic relations, so you see a lot. If you listen to some of the areas of the folks who've testified today, most of those things have been dealing with family law, divorce, child support, those type of issues that JDR judges have to struggle with every day. So I just hope that it would be the will of the body to reappoint Judge Mills. Thank you.
Judge Mills, just tell us a little bit about your experience on the bench and why you'd like to continue.
Sure. I love my job. Every day I get up, I thoroughly enjoy it. We have quite a variety of cases. I do civil, I do criminal, we do the domestic cases. As Delegate Scott alluded to, we have a very emotional court. The decisions we have and make in our court are exceptionally important. And in part, why I want to go back is I'll give you a quick story as to why. I had a case in front of me a couple of years ago. One day a woman comes in, stands up. I recognized her. She wasn't on my docket, but she looked familiar. And she says, Judge Mills, may I say something? You know, are you here on a case? And she said, no. And she said, I just want to tell you that you saved my son's life. And I said, what was his name? And she told me the name, and I honestly couldn't remember it. But I went back and looked at it, and it was a young man who had his first interaction with the law, and I cut him a break. And she told me that now he was straight A's in school. He's got his life straight. He's moving forward well. And that's what we do. I enjoy doing that. I enjoy interacting with the families. The foster care stuff, I was a foster care child as an infant, so I have a special place in my heart for the foster care kids. So anyway, I would very much like to go back for those reasons, among others.
I'm sorry, are there questions for Judge Mills? Senator Morrissey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Judge.
Good afternoon.
First and foremost, thank you on your for your service, and also I appreciated your comment regarding the foster care system. Judge, have you had an opportunity to review the 2023 judicial performance evaluation summaries?
I have.
Okay. Judge, you are ranked second from the bottom. There are 17 categories, and you are dead last in 11 of them, including patience, courtesy, respect, fairness, impartiality. I could go on. Can you address your extremely low JPE evaluations?
When I got those, I was extraordinarily disappointed in those scores. Quite frankly, some of them were embarrassing. I can't point to one particular reason for it. I can tell the committee that since I got those a couple of months ago, every day I try to improve them. I go out on the bench, I try to treat people differently, especially when it comes to attorneys. Now, when it comes to pro se litigants, which we have a lot of in our court, I am exceedingly patient. In fact, nobody leaves my courtroom without me asking them, is there anything else you'd like to tell me? And so I certainly do it with the pro se litigants. Obviously, that is not the case with the attorneys. The only explanation I can think of when it comes to attorneys is when I was a civil litigator, whether it was in federal or state court, I was prepared for my cases. And unfortunately, that is not always the case in our court. And it's clear from those reviews that on occasion I have let my frustration go a little too far with lawyers who appear in front of me are not prepared. The courteous thing was quite a surprise. And Judge, Delegate Scott appears in front of me, and I am uniformly polite and courteous to everybody. So, Senator Morrissey, I'm not sure where that came from, but I am aware of how poor they are, and I'm aware that it needs improvement, and I've already taken steps to alleviate that. In fact, as a former trial lawyer, I like to ask questions during trials. I do that quite a bit. And I can't help but wonder if some of those criticisms came from that. And so what I've done is I backed off that a little bit. I don't ask quite as many questions anymore. If I am fortunate enough to get another term, and I am well aware that that is a big if at this point, I will redouble my efforts to address those issues going forward. And if you see me again in 6 years, I can assure you those scores will be considerably better.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Miss- All right, so, Judge, listening to you, I had a potential observation. What kind of practice did you have as a regular practitioner before you took the bench?
Civil litigation solely. I had literally never been in a JNDR courtroom. Corporate litigation, maritime litigation, defending PI cases.
Okay, I'm going to make an observation that some of the practitioners up here may or may not share, but there are different kinds of lawyers. There are those who get big cases and they get a chance to greatly prepare for each case. And then there's district court and JNDR practitioners, which some of us are, where you are very happy if your client called you back one time before you arrived in the courthouse.
Yeah.
And what I'm getting at is what you may see as an under-preparation is some desperately trying to stitch together a case when you have very limited opportunity to prepare. Your client may be fighting you every step of the way. There's lots of reasons why a lawyer in front of you may not be as prepared as you had been in your bigger cases. And I would encourage you to keep that in mind. In other words, you are not a district court person. Many of the district court practitioners kind of would chuckle about it, but I mean, you're just trying to get by. And it's not because you're a bad lawyer. It may be, but it's not often. It's just that you do not have the same level of prep work with a carefully typed file with a paralegal that put it together, an associate that ran through it before you got up in front of the court, I think, as some of the other practitioners are. So next time you're losing your temper at one of us who's just trying to remember our client's sister's name and why she's not there, and you've got the other lawyer helping you in the hallway looking for somebody coming up in the last second, that may be what's happening.
Sure.
Thank you.
And I appreciate that observation, and I've tried to be more mindful of that since I got these criticisms, but that is certainly a good point.
Are there additional questions for Judge Meals? Thank you, Judge. Best wishes.
Thank you. Y'all have a nice holiday.
Okay, next is Judge Alfred Bates, who's a General District Court judge from Suffolk. Yeah, it's the most important position you can imagine.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Senator Lucas.
I'm before you now to present to you Judge Al Bates, and I want to tell you a little story about him just before I present him to you. He was my city attorney in the city of Portsmouth. And when there was a vacancy in that district, I looked at about 3 or 4 different people, and I thought, oh my goodness, this is an opportunity here. And so without moving forward hastily, I called 2 of my favorite colleagues at that time to my office to talk to me because they both were interested in that appointment as well. It was Senator Yvonne B. Miller and Senator Mamie Locke. So before we brought Judge Bates up, at the time a city attorney Bates up, the 3 of us interviewed him and queried him like we were the joint committee. And I think we made him a bit uncomfortable, but he endured the 3 of us, and he went on to be interviewed by joint courts. And of course, the rest is history. So with that, I present to you my former city attorney, now my judge, Judge Al Bates.
Thank you, Senator Lucas. Judge Bates, your scores look good. You're not going to be able to serve out a full term. That might not be such a good thing. Delegate, I'd like you to just tell us a little bit about your experience on the bench and why you'd like to continue.
Well, I enjoy going to work every day. I don't miss very many days from work. I enjoy the difference I think I can make in the community. I enjoy being, I feel as though I'm making a difference with folks in folks' lives. I enjoy educating pro se parties, dealing with complex issues with the attorneys. Those are the reasons I'd like to continue. I enjoy the work, and I get up every day and do it.
Delegate Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I can say I get the opportunity to appear before Judge Bates often. Judge Bates, as you can see from his scores, not only just the scores, but just his temperament in the courtroom is extremely fair. Never gives me what I want, but he's fair. But he's a good, very good judge. I'm joking, Judge. He's a very good judge. And, you know, the thing that I like about him the most is there are, and I hate to say this, but there are a lot of poor people who come to court sometimes without attorneys. And Judge Bates bends over backwards to be fair to them, to let them feel heard. I've had pro se litigants come in that courtroom, mainly African American, that look like us, that were not expecting to get a fair shot in court. But after being in that courtroom with Judge Bates, they left knowing that they were heard, that they got a fair shot, even though they didn't always get what they wanted. And some of them got what they wanted and got a fair opportunity, even when they were litigating for themselves, especially in traffic matters and things like that in General District Court. So I just want to commend Judge Bates for being fair to those who may not come in with the big time attorneys and coming on their own. He listens to them as though he were listening to a great litigant like Tommy Norman or somebody. He treats them the same way. So I want to say thank you, Judge, and I hope that it be the will of the body to recertify him.
Okay, thank you, Delegate. Are there questions for Judge Bates? Thank you, Judge. Have a nice Christmas.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Judge Stan Clark from Isle of Wight County.
He's a great judge. I know it's not good because he's so sweet. He's a sweet judge.
The numbers, they look good. 96. Senator Lucas.
Good morning. Good morning again, Mr. Chairman. I heard a few chuckles and they said you might as well just take a seat down on the floor. But as you all know, I represent currently a jury-rigged district that includes a lot of districts. And Judge Clark and I have had a long time relationship because of his law office in Portsmouth. One quick story about Judge Clark. I was going to visit his office one day, had nothing to do with me being in trouble, just to pay a visit. And before I got inside, I just happened to look in another direction and I wrecked a car in front of his office. It turned out it was one of his clerks in his office. And so when I went inside and confessed to what I had done, he said, "That's all right. You just go and pay for it and you'll be all right, I think." Anyway, it seems as though I have an experience with all of the judges in my district. But I want to present to you all a wonderful judge this morning, Judge Stan Clark.
Judge Clark, if you just want to tell us a little bit about your experience on the bench and why you'd like to continue.
Well, the juvenile court is, I think, the most challenging position you can have in the judicial branch. Every case is a challenge, but every case is an opportunity. The darker the case, the greater the opportunity to affect changes in people's lives. I like to think that the darker cases allow me to send people out of the courtroom in a better place. The closer cases and the abuse and neglect and the custody cases give us a chance to improve the home life of families, of juveniles, and to put services in place that send people to a better place. And I like to think when it's my job, when somebody comes into my courtroom on the civil side, to make sure they leave in a better place. On the criminal side, I think it's our job to try to rehabilitate where we can and at all times protect the public.
Thank you, Judge. Are there any questions? Delegate Scott.
I just have a comment.
Yes, sir.
Judge Clark, I'm just going to say this. Judge Clark is just a sweet judge. I mean, I hate to say it. He's just a sweet, kind man on the bench. And you cannot ask for more. That's just who he is, and I just really appreciate the way he conducts himself in the courtroom and the way that he treats the litigants. I don't think I've heard anybody complain about Judge Clark. Even when he's ruling against you, he explains his decisions and why he's doing it. And I would hope it would be the will of the body just to recertify Judge Clark.
Okay, thank you, Delegate.
Thank you.
Are there questions? Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Best wishes to you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Judge Gary Mills, who's a circuit court judge from Newport News.
Okay. All right.
Now we find out why Senator Norman.
Now we know why he's here.
He must have a case.
I'm done.
Senator Norman.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. It is indeed my pleasure to introduce to you once again Judge Gary Mills. I had the pleasure of being mentored by Judge Mills when I practiced law at Jones, Blackman, Waltz, and Kelly for a brief period of time. And very early on, I recognized that he was an extraordinary attorney who was very astute as it came to the law, but also exercised common sense, which sometimes escapes those of us in the practice of law. But he's done an outstanding job since 2003, and with that I will defer to my senior colleague, the delegate from James City County.
Well, thank you, Senator. I would just speak so very highly of Judge Mills and everything that he has done for our city over the course of his years of service. He has guided us with great thought, and I could not speak more highly of him. And so I would commend him to the committee.
Okay, Judge Mills, if you just want to tell us a little bit about your experience on the bench and why you'd like to continue. You don't have to be lengthy. These two endorsements speak highly for you.
Thank you, Senator. I've been on the bench since 2003. I think Newport News has a phenomenal bench, quite frankly. I very much enjoyed it. Certain aspects of General District, quite frankly, I like more. But we have the circuit court right now in Newport News is a really well-running machine. We have lots of jury trials, thank y'all. It's a really big change. And we're doing about 3 or 4 jury trials a week. And I think the juries are getting it right. And so I'm enjoying it. And every day it's a pleasure to go to work. We're working hard to try to serve the people of Newport News and let everybody have their say and try to be fair in every single case.
Okay, thank you, Judge. Are there questions for Judge Mills? Delegate Senator Morrissey.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Judge, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
A couple of years ago, we changed the law allowing individuals to avail themselves of a jury trial, but also a judge sentencing. I'm always just curious how that is working in different judicial circuits, and can you opine on that?
Yes, sir. Thank you. It is something that the city needs to address for our space. When the courthouse was built, we did not have as many jury trials. And so as a result, we need larger rooms for jury assemblies because instead of doing 1 or 2 juries a week, we're doing 5. A lot more defendants are taking juries. As an attorney who did a criminal practice, I always thought our previous system had a chilling effect on people's exercising their rights. So the change is good. But we need to fund the change so that we have enough judges, enough Commonwealth attorneys, and quite frankly, the physical space is what's limiting us in Newport News. So our sheriff will not does not want us to do more than 3 juries starting the same day because of physical space. And so there is some concerns, but those are all things we can work out.
Okay.
But
thank you.
Good change.
Thank you, Judge.
All right.
Are there additional questions? Judge, thank you very much. Best wishes to you.
Thank you.
Judge Corey Smith, who's a General District Court judge in Hampton.
Ladies and gentlemen of the committee, it's indeed my pleasure to introduce to you Judge Corey Smith, who I have known for many, many years. She distinguished herself as an outstanding attorney in Hampton, did an awful lot of domestic relations work, and I know Senator Stanley would tell you I'm not much of a lawyer, but she beat me on every case I ever had with her, and just beat me unmercifully. In spite of that experience, I am a very avid supporter of her. She has done a wonderful job of transitioning from litigating cases to deciding the cases. She exercises extraordinary patience, but again, I think is a very commonsensical judge, and for that reason, I recommend her to you highly.
Judge, you want to, after that endorsement, do you want to save your chances?
I'm not sure who he's talking about, but
Just tell us a little bit about your experience on the bench and why you like to continue.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I have, going 17 years of private practice, it was a significant transition to the bench, but I'd like to think I've finally found my stride. Still a work in progress, obviously, but I thoroughly enjoy the job. I find it very fulfilling, and especially establishing Hampton's only behavioral health docket. That has been an enormous fulfillment for me, and seeing the impact the real impact that that docket is having, not only on the individuals that participate on the docket, but their family and the residents of Hampton. It has been a phenomenal experience.
And how long have you had that going?
It is 2 years now.
2 years?
We've had 2 graduations. We've graduated 7 people. Yeah,
That's important work.
it's very rewarding.
Are there questions for this judge, Judge Smith? Senator Morrissey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning still. It's still good morning, and
Yes, sir.
thank you for your service.
Thank you.
It's more of a comment and then a question. Mr. Chair, I've frequently noted when people have done poorly on the judicial performance evaluation, and I'd like to note that Judge Smith has in the top 25%, and particularly since this is her first term, I think that's worth noting. My question is, do you find, having been involved in the JPE evaluations and spoken to your colleagues, that they are helpful to you in being a better judge, or helpful to your colleagues in being a better judge?
Thank you, Senator. I actually do find it very helpful. Having the ability to self-reflect is definitely important, especially as a judge, but having the ability to see my rulings or how I conduct myself in the courtroom from someone else's perspective is very informative, and it gives me a perspective that maybe I didn't have without that.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Are there additional questions for Judge Smith? Thank you very much and best wishes.
All right. Thank you. Have a good day.
I'm sorry, we do have, Ms. Judge, you may want to have a seat.
Yes.
I apologize. We went.
That's okay. I keep reminding you.
Yeah, but she wasn't on the list, but she notified us this morning. So,
I had requested this morning to add her. When I was reviewing the information I was wanting to discuss on October 18th, 2022, I went to the judicial conference meeting of the judges. I was the only citizen that was at that meeting. And it was at that meeting that I learned that it was this group of people, or this group of judges, who not only have a lobbying arm, they are making decisions that are bad for the public, because they're the ones who made the decision on the mediation, which is a great program, but you don't get to do it if you're pro se, and that's discrimination. They also are making a decision on a law, and it's, if you get a copy of the study, it's page 68, and the law reads, use of a person's identity with the intent to coerce, intimidate, or harass penalty. And when you see person's identity, you think of identity theft. But what it actually is, they're adding in there that basically if anyone discusses or talks about a judge that he feels he's being harassed, coerced, intimidated, that there's a penalty of 6 months in jail for that person. That's our freedom of speech. And I was asked not to make any comments and not to speak at the meeting, and I behaved. I didn't do that. But afterwards, when I was talking, but not one judge saw this as a problem. And afterwards, when I was talking about it, I was told, well, you can contact the legislature and deal with it that way. But I was also shocked to learn they have a lobbying arm. Are judges allowed to lobby the legislature? I thought we had a separation of powers. Especially, there were some things in here. One of them is they don't want their addresses publicized, and I get that. I have absolutely no problem with that. I think there should be a level of privacy. But we can't take the freedom of speech to be able to talk about a judge when he acts without integrity in a courtroom. We can't take away our freedom of speech. I mean, we've already seen that with Twitter and everything. And to have jail time.
Ms. Grenadier, that's 3 minutes.
Okay.
I've been in the General Assembly 31 years, and I've never been lobbied by anybody on behalf of a judge.
Well, that's what this is states, and I will be happy to give you a copy of it. Okay? Thank you.
Judge Cheryl Higgins. She's a circuit court judge from Charlottesville or Albemarle County.
Good morning.
And I apologize. Judge Higgins, welcome. If you just tell us a little bit about your experience and why you'd like to continue.
So my experience has been that it is just an amazing job where you really have the opportunity to impact people's lives for the better. And I want to continue doing the job because it's so important to me, and there are still things that I want to accomplish.
Thank you. Are there questions for Judge Higgins? We were at a retirement ceremony recently, and Delegate Bell and I were sitting on the front row, and we were talking about retired judge from, now I'm thinking about the guy from Waynesboro, Heatwall, that I used to close real estate loans with. Judge Higgins, who used to be Vaughn, who was on Assistant Commonwealth Attorney in Rockingham County when I was Commonwealth Attorney of Bath County, and Judge Moore, who was an Assistant Commonwealth Attorney, retired Judge Moore, who was Assistant Commonwealth Attorney in Augusta County in those days. And we were talking about how everybody had made something of themselves, except for me and Bell. Are there any questions? Thank you so much, and best wishes to you. Have a nice holiday season.
Thank you. Same to all of you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, we are a little bit ahead of schedule, but is Judge Rizk, is it Rizk? Rizk.
You got it? You got it, McDougal? Good.
Okay. We have heavyweights up there now. Norman and McDougal.
Oh my! I've been losing weight. What are you talking about?
They fighting.
Senator Norman.
Mr. Chairman, it is a genuine privilege to introduce to you Judge Rizk. I have known him for many, many years, and he's had quite a journey in the legal profession, from working with the Attorney General's office to working in the Commonwealth Attorney's office, served as a substitute judge, and now is the circuit court judge in York County. And I will say that he is the most pragmatic judge that I've had the privilege of appearing in front of. And as you all know from having to deal with me in the legislative process, I can try the patience of even those of you who have untold patience. And Judge Rizk has managed to tolerate me with dignity, and my respect only continues to grow with him with every case that I litigate in front of him, and I commend him to you.
Senator McDougal.
I got to know Judge Rizk. I believe I was interning in the Commonwealth Attorney's office when he was in Hanover back in the late 90s, early 90s. So it's been it seems like a couple of eons ago, but he did a tremendous job then and has continued to do a tremendous job in every jurisdiction that he has visited, either professionally or on the court, and is one individual, and I think this is reflective in the reviews that we see, that has the ability to make sure that everybody is heard, and in his rulings come across fair and unbiased. He does a tremendous job, and did from the years when he was a young prosecutor. So,
Judge Rizk, if you just want to tell us a little bit about your experience on the bench and why you'd like to continue.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So I'll begin by saying it's been an absolute blessing to serve the community as a jurist. I'm very fortunate to work with a team in the courthouse, from the clerks to the deputies to the attorneys, just a wonderful group as we do our best to administer justice. I think what I've learned over the last 7.5 years is how much there is to learn. And I realized that over these last 7.5 years, I've been a much better focused student than maybe I was 30 years ago in law school. It's a work in progress, and you realize in the circuit court just how broad and diverse the cases are. And if you're going to sit in judgment of others and their matters, you have to take that seriously, and you have to put in your time and your due diligence so you can do your best to administer justice to the community. So I've learned that it's a work in progress. I've welcomed it. I've enjoyed it. I've grown from it professionally and personally, and I welcome the opportunity to continue to serve.
Thank you. Senator Morrissey?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, while I just walked back in, I'd already reviewed his evaluations. And again, point out that of all of our judicial evaluations, we mentioned earlier that Judge Tucker was at the very top. Well, Judge Rizek, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that name correctly,
You are. Thank you, sir.
finished number 2, second from the top in all of the categories and all of the 29 or 30 judges that are before us. Judge, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Are there questions for Judge Rizek? Well, thank you very much, Judge. Best wishes to you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Judge Dennis Martin, who's a circuit court judge in the 11th Circuit. Senator Morrissey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I'll be brief. Judge Martin is seeking reappointment to the circuit court bench. Of all of the people that you will see come before you, it's hard to find somebody that's that's less humble on the bench, who is more committed to making sure that litigants, as I often say, get their day in court. Highly regarded by members of the bar, and I can't speak highly enough for Judge Martin. One small vignette that I'll share with you is about 8 months ago, I heard that there was gunshots in his neighborhood and that his house had received some shrapnel. True story. I called him up just to see how he was and how he was doing, and he said he was fine, his wife is fine, he has a lovely family, and he reminded me that I had been canvassing out there the day before. True story. With that vignette, it is my privilege and my honor to introduce you to Judge Dennis Martin.
So your suggestion is that they were looking for you?
I think that was it.
Wow. Senator McDougal.
Mr. Chairman, I don't represent this circuit, but Dennis Martin, it's interesting that you had Judge Rizek and Judge Martin right behind each other. But having practiced with him for a number of years, and we had lots of different cases that we were involved with together or discussed because of issues. He is, again, one of the most reflective and respected and courteous individuals. And I think Senator Morrissey's comment about him being humble is really spot on. He is a tremendous asset to the bench, and we're very happy to have him here.
Judge Martin, if you just want to tell us a little bit about your experience on the bench and why you'd like to continue.
Well, it has been one of the greatest jobs that I've had in my entire life. And I thank you for giving me the opportunity to serve the Commonwealth and my community. And when I think of the job, that's what I think of it as. It's service. And every litigant, every person that comes in the courtroom should be treated like a human being, and we should be courteous and we should be kind, but we should do our job. And I just thank you for giving me another opportunity to do that.
Okay, thank you, Judge. Are there questions for Judge Martin? Well, that all bodes well for you, Judge.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, and best wishes to you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Judge Gordon Willis of the 15th Judicial Circuit. Judge, how are you? If you just tell us a little bit about your experience on the bench and why you'd like to continue.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I've been on the bench I'm in my 20th year. I started out as a district court judge, did that for 4 years, and then I've had 2 terms as circuit court judge up in the city of Fredericksburg. I know that some of you have appeared in front of me over the years and are familiar with the city of Fredericksburg, and it's been a wonderful experience for me. I grew up in Fredericksburg. It was a lot smaller than it is now, and I've enjoyed being the circuit court judge there. And of course, my father used to be the circuit court judge there before he went on the Court of Appeals, so I've got his portrait on one side of me, and I've got John Scott on the other one. So I feel like I got good people looking over my shoulder.
Okay, thank you, Judge. Are there questions for Judge Wells? Well, I think we have somebody who wants to speak. So, Judge, I'd ask you to just take a seat. Ms. Grenadier, you've got 3 minutes.
Thank you. I won't even take that long, really. On December 2nd, in 2022, in his circuit, Matt Strickland's place of business, Gourmet's Restaurant, was raided. And the judges in all circuits really pretty much know what's going on. And COVID is one of those situations. It was a unique situation. Everybody worked hard in order to work together to be able to feed our neighbors. He kept his restaurant open, and for doing that, he lost his liquor license. He's fighting back. He's also running for, I believe, a delegate spot or something. But the bottom line is, we have to have judges that are standing up and speaking out when they see something that's wrong that's happening in their district. And that's not happening. And that's where integrity comes in. So I ask that you think about that, and maybe not in his case, but that we have to have some kind of guidelines that when they know something's wrong, they do something.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Senator Morrissey's got a question.
Ms. Grenadier? Ms. Grenadier? Again, I said earlier, I respect your right to, state your opinion, and that continues. But are you aware that judges are prohibited from voluntarily coming out and speaking about a particular issue, particularly one that may appear in their courts, such as somebody like Mr. Strickland losing his license? They can't speak out.
Okay, so judges are also lawyers, and there's a certain amount of, and they have judicial canons, and in both of those, if they see something wrong or they see a judge or a lawyer doing something wrong, they have an obligation to report it. Maybe not make it public, but there should be some type of place that they can go to report that, you know what, this is a unique situation. Okay. We've just had COVID.
Thank you, Mr.
I
Chair.
agree with you, and I appreciate your question. Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you. Okay, and I want to get this name right if I can. Judge Shannon Hoyle. Okay, she is a member of the Judicial Inquiry and Review Commission. She's up for a 2nd term, and she's also a General District Court judge from the Fredericksburg Circuit. A juvenile court judge, I apologize. I think Senator McDougal wants to be recognized first, and I don't know whether he's going to say good things or bad things, Judge.
Judge, this is Judge Hoyle. Judge Hoyle started her career in the Commonwealth's Attorney's Office in Hanover and has been on the juvenile bench for a number of years, and I know she's very excited to be with us and not present at her docket today, which I know was quite extensive and going late into the day, but she has done a great job on the juvenile bench and deals with some very difficult cases, and they seem to be getting more challenging as time goes by. And happy to present her to the committee.
Thank you. Judge Hoyle, if you just want to tell us a little bit about your experience on the bench and why you'd like to continue.
Yes, absolutely. First of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to seek reappointment. I've found that being a juvenile and domestic relations court judge has by far been the most rewarding experience of my career. I quite frankly would not have expected it to be as rewarding as it has been. It's just nice to be a piece of the puzzle that comes together to make people's lives better, particularly families and children.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Are there questions for Judge Hoyle? Okay, Judge, if you just have a seat, I think Ms. Grenadier wants to speak about your reappointment to the Jerk Commission.
And unfortunately, I'll have to repeat some of the things I've already said because she hasn't heard them. The only way for us to have the ability to have a judge kept in check is the JERC. It's the Judicial Committee. She's now been on it. This will be her second term. And I have filed so many cases that have never made it to her, most likely. So we have to find a way that we can get integrity into the review boards. These judges should know that there's more conflicts going on and more people unhappy, and they should be asking to see complaints instead of waiting for complaints to come to them, maybe. Or maybe we need to create a review panel where people, when they get these cases of winners and losers, where the loser can actually go and chat with someone. I know I haven't always been really well articulate, and I apologize. I'm doing the best I can, and I'm trying to learn. It's important that our court has integrity, and if we're not going to have a special panel, then let's open up the grand jury. The grand jury is the fourth arm of government, and it's the arm of government that belongs to the people to keep the other branches in check. Our judges are blocking us. The Supreme Court is granting cases and case numbers, and then the judges block you. We need a way, and Justice Scalia and Justice Powell from Virginia codified the grand jury in their different rulings. Not only that, our citizens' grand jury book states we have the right to go in front of it. And our judges are not supposed to be kings and queens. We are supposed to have that ability to find a place to go and get redress on public corruption. And we don't have that right now. So I ask all of you, and this will be the last time you hear me talk, which I'm sure you're glad, but I want to work with you. I may have come across as attacking, and I appreciate all of Mr. Morrissey's comments, and I guess Senator Morrissey, sorry. And I also want to bring out the importance of ADA advocates. They've declared pro se litigants to have PTSD, and so they deserve to have an advocate in court in order to be able to help them just stay calm and to be able to review different things. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for listening to me today and your time. I greatly appreciate it. I hope you'll check out my website, judicialpedia.com. Any comments you have or anything like that, please feel free to reach out to me.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Judge Hoyle, Senator Morrissey's got one question.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Judge Hoyle.
Yes.
I asked this of another individual who was before us, who was a member of the Judicial Inquiry and Review Commission. You're familiar with the statute that allows legislators unfettered access to the complaints that are made to the JERC committee regarding a judge who's up for reappointment.
Yes, sir.
There have been problems. One legislator had to file suit to get those documents. What is your philosophy on giving us, a legislator, upon request, the full complaint of a judge up for reappointment so that we can do our due diligence and vet them properly?
Yes, sir. Well, as far as my philosophy goes, my philosophy is that we have to follow the law to the T. And I believe that JERC is conscientious and believes steadfastly that that is exactly what we're doing, that we're following the law as it is written. And I will also say that, we absolutely respect this body's ability to change the law if that's what they deem fit to do. And I can assure you that it will be our position, if it does change, that we will follow the law to the T. That's what we want to do. We want to be in compliance with the law at all times.
Following up on Senator Morris's line of questioning, do you think that an individual who files a complaint against a sitting judge is entitled to know the disposition of that matter?
I think right now the law as it is written, does not allow for a specific disposition to be revealed. I think that the code is pretty specific on that. I think that JERC will notify them that the complaint has been addressed and that it has been, disposed of. But I don't think that we are permitted to give a specific disposition.
Thank you, Judge. We're very near the end.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
The next to last judge is Julian Johnson, who's a Juvenile and Domestic Relations District Court judge from the same circuit, Senator McDougal. I would say you've got a lot of judges up there. Yeah.
Just happens to be the time they're coming back.
Judge Johnson, welcome.
Good morning.
If you just tell us a little bit about your experience on the bench and why you'd like to continue.
I've enjoyed the last almost 18 years as a JNDR court judge in Stafford primarily. I would like to continue my service to my community and my Commonwealth, Virginia. It's been a very rewarding experience for myself. I believe that I have been a positive influence in my community, and I wish to have the opportunity to continue being so.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions of this judge, Judge Johnson? Senator McDougal.
Mr. Chairman, I just point out Judge Johnson also had very high scores on the judicial evaluations. And I think in juvenile court, it's even more challenging to get good scores because of the nature of the issues that the court is reviewing, and that should be noted.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Are there additional questions? Thank you, Judge. Have a
Thank
nice
you.
holiday season.
Thank you, you too.
Okay. The last judge we have is a circuit court judge from Henrico County, Judge John Marshall.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator McDougal.
Mr. Chairman, I also don't represent this circuit anymore, but did work with Judge Marshall back in his time when he practiced many eons ago, which it seems like, and you will see that he has a number of attorneys with him or that are well-respected and or substitute judges that have worked with him in different capacities or along the way, and I think look forward to his reappointment.
Okay, thank you, sir. Judge, if you just tell us a little bit about your experience on the bench and why you'd like to continue.
I started in '05. Delegate McDougal was one of my delegates back then. After 10 years in the district court, I wanted a bigger challenge. I went to circuit court, where this is my first term on the circuit court. It has been quite the challenge. The most rewarding thing has been drug court for me as a judge. And with Mike Feinmel, when he was with the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, we started a CAP docket, which was meant for those that had failed at the under advisement for drug possession charges. Instead of giving them their felony convictions, we created a program to try to give them another chance with more intensive supervision, drug testing, to get them on the track to being able to have their felony dismissed. So I don't know what the number is. They gave it to me yesterday, but we've had, let's see, we started in 18, 9, 15, 27, 31 so far have successfully completed the program and avoided the felony conviction that they would have otherwise had under the normal 251 disposition. Between that and then drug court, we graduated 21 this year, 15 last year, and miraculously during the COVID year, we did 17. Had graduated and still made it through drug court despite that. But that's been the most rewarding part, making a difference from that standpoint. And I love what I do.
Well, thank you, Judge. Senator Morrissey's got questions.
Comment, Mr. Chair. It's rewarding to hear from the third judge today about drug courts, which I think is one of the most important, if not the best method of programs that we have in the criminal justice system. One comment, I used to get invited to them in Henrico, and I availed myself. I think I went to 5 or 6 of the graduations, which are fabulous. My recommendation, as I've made to others, is that other members of the legislature that represent Henrico that maybe have not had an opportunity to see a drug court graduation, if you would, maybe you're doing it, but if not, extend an invitation to the, wonderful, for doing that. And the only question is, we changed the law a couple of years ago allowing defendants to have a jury trial, but a judge sentencing. Can you weigh in on how how that program or that law change has been as far as causing more juries, less juries, and generally weigh in on how you see that benefiting the community or not?
The policy change, we were one of the only ones doing jury sentencing, so y'all set the policy, that's fine. I think it's fine either way. The impact has been the massive amounts of juries we have now. My court, we have 5 courtrooms. We stack our juries. We're setting 8 to 9 juries a day. We can do 4 at one time because one judge has to be free to do the regular docket. But we've had it's been an explosion of defendants wanting a jury trial, which I can't blame them for that. That's their right. We even have a lot of misdemeanor DUI cases that before would never have jury trials. We're having a fair amount of those requesting jury trials. So the impact has been, unfortunately for the civil bar, you have to wait a long time. In our court, if you want a multi-day, say 4-day, 5-day civil jury, you're going to probably wait 2 years or so. And that's just because we have to give priority to criminal cases due to the speedy trial. And if a case is going to get bumped, fortunately, so far between plea agreements, guilty pleas, settlements of civil cases, we haven't had to bump anybody recently. But if a case is going to get bumped because we have too many juries to do on that day, it's going to be a civil case because of the speedy trial law.
Final comment, Mr. Chair.
Senator Morrissey.
As somebody who's about to represent Henrico, again, if folks are willing in Henrico, please keep us apprised of the changes because it's a new law. It has just gone into effect. There's some fluidity involved. And I think it's still working itself out. And I would like, and I think my colleagues would as well, like to know how that process is unfolding. All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Are there additional questions? Okay, there are a number of people, Judge, if you just want to have a seat, there are a number of people that want to speak in favor of Judge Marshall's reappointment. Irv Blank, one-on lawyer.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee. As Senator Dean said, I'm Irving Blank. I've practiced in the Circuit Court of Henrico County since 1967. Some of you may know that I've interviewed and vetted judicial nominations for local bars, the Virginia State Bar, the U.S. Senators, and for your committees for many years. My practice has been litigation in almost every area of the law, and it has taken me into almost every circuit court in the Commonwealth. My many years of bar service, including president of the Virginia State Bar and the Virginia Law Foundation, actually began from a judicial reappointment process. So this is something very dear to me. I come before you to endorse the reappointment of Judge John Marshall of Henrico. I've known Judge Marshall since he began to practice. His father was a well-known lawyer in Henrico and was in law school with me, a few years ahead of me, but in law school with me. Judge Marshall has spent his entire life in Henrico County. He's blessed with an understanding of the entire county and is looked on as a favorite son of Henrico. I've watched him preside over his court, and I've talked to him extensively about the need for additional court personnel and procedures and in both his court and the General District Court where he sat before. He has been a loyal and devoted supporter of all the bar associations. He's been visible and active in the general community and has brought positive feelings about the judiciary in Henrico. His work ethic is exemplary. Probably because of my age and bar service, I routinely hear lawyers voice their opinions about our judges, especially in the Henrico-Richmond area, where I've practiced for almost 56 years. It is my opinion, formed from personal observation and the general reputation in the legal community, that John Marshall is not just an excellent judge, but he brings to the bench the ability to communicate with the parties to a case in a way that parties feel respected, and that they had a fair and impartial hearing. John Marshall lets the lawyers try their cases. He understands and appreciates that a trial is an adversarial event, and I am unaware of an instance where Judge Marshall left either side of a controversy with the impression that he was not treating each in a fair and equal way. He has always been approachable and willing to explain his positions and the processes and procedures in his court. I submit to you that the reappointment of Judge Marshall to another term as a judge of the Circuit Court of Enrico would be a service to the Commonwealth and especially to Enrico, and would more than satisfy your role in oversight of the judicial appointments. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today.
Thank you, Mr. Blank. John Goots.
Good afternoon. My name is John Goots, and I'm just a practicing attorney in Henrico County. I've been asked to come here today to endorse Judge Marshall, and Irv did a great job. I know that I'm supposed to be very short and sweet. I'll say that Judge Marshall is very fair. He is unbiased. He's willing to listen to parties. He's knowledgeable of the law. He's honest. And in my eyes, one of the most important aspects, he explains decisions to participants. I think that's very important as a practicing attorney. If you go into his court and he listens to you and he greets you and he's friendly to you, and then he explains a decision based upon the law, I think it's very important for that to happen. And I respect Judge Marshall for that. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those questions.
Thank you, Mr. Goots.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Michael Fonmel. Did I pronounce that? Did I mispronounce that?
No, you did. Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, and thank you for hearing from me. I had written out quite a few notes that I'm actually not going to go through. I can't continue, or I can't rise above what Mr. Blank, Mr. Goots, and what I know Mr. Cooley is going to say for Judge Marshall. So I'm just going to focus on one area, and actually, Senator Morrissey, this is really in response to your comments about drug court. For 21 years, I worked as a Commonwealth attorney. I should have introduced myself previously. I'm now the Deputy County Manager for Henrico County. I was a 29-year practicing attorney, the first 10 years of my career as a defense attorney, and then the last 20 years as an assistant Commonwealth attorney, and then a deputy Commonwealth attorney in Henrico County. I worked closely with Judge Marshall and other judges, now Judge Randall Johnson, as well as Judge Gary Hicks and Judge Catherine Hammond at the onset of creating drug court, and worked with each judge. For each judge, drug court was a labor of love. But Senator Morrissey, you spoke about the graduation of drug court. I actually want to focus you on the onset of people entering into drug court, because that's where I think I've seen Judge Marshall have the most impact. Almost every week, somebody comes before Judge Marshall in court and wants to enter into drug court, and they make promises to Judge Marshall. You know, this is going to be it. This is going to be life-changing for me. I'm going to turn it around. I'm going to be the superstar that you expect out of drug court. And I think most of those promises are well-intentioned. Some may not be. But over and over and over again, over the years that Judge Marshall has worked with drug court, Judge Marshall has responded the same way. He says, you know what, sir or ma'am, you have two obligations. Number one is just to show up. Just show up. Come where we ask you to go and show up. And the other is to tell the truth. If you'll do those two things, we'll take care of the rest, and we'll shepherd you through this process. And it's impactful. And when I've heard Judge Marshall say that over and over again to defendants, it's impactful, and it's really the message of going through drug court. And quite frankly, it personifies Judge Marshall's judicial philosophy. Be fair, be honest, show up, be responsible. That's his expectation in court. That's how he treats the defendants in front of him. That's how he treats the lawyers. That's what makes him an outstanding jurist. Again, you're going to hear, I'm sure, from Mr. Cooley last, but I certainly join Mr. Blank and Mr. Goots in the strong endorsement of Judge Marshall.
Thank you so much. Craig Cooley, also a lawyer here.
Good afternoon, each of you. My name is Craig Cooley. I have practiced as a criminal defense attorney for the last 46 years. The only distinction I have is I think that I have lost more cases than any known living human being. That's the only qualification I can offer to you. What I can say to you is A number of those losses occurred in my appearances in front of Judge Marshall, but I am here in his support because I have never, ever had the slightest question about the integrity of the ruling he made. I've never seen bias. I've never seen prejudice. I've always seen him with measured responses, with circumstances in which he gauged the testimony and always explained his reasoning and why he came to the conclusion for or against me, and I've always appreciated that. I would join in the comments about the fact he treats every citizen, non-citizen, litigant, attorney, and equally important, every member of the courtroom staff with dignity and with courtesy and respect. So I would join in the comments that have been made. I would say to you that I think he has invested his life in the community of Henrico, in the court system, in the litigants that appear in front of him, and that he has done that particularly in addressing the opioid epidemic that we have. He's deeply committed to trying to save the lives of young people who simply get involved in an addiction and seem to just invariably, too many times, to be bonded out only to see their name in the paper shortly thereafter as having overdosed. And he, among as all of the judges in Henrico, and I commend you because you all have collectively built a very fine bench in Henrico, top to bottom in all of our courts. Every one of them is deep in the quality, and Judge Marshall is among those. So thank you for that, and thank you for listening to me.
Thank you so much. And I think that's the last person we have signed up. And the certifications will take place when we have a quorum after, and when we get back together in a month. So unless there's anything else for the good of the order, we're adjourned.